I love this song. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's DJ Lou on the mic, hanging out with Mike on the Open Your Minds podcast. I got Harry and Dan on the show.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Thanks. Good to be here.
What do you guys think of that song?
How can you not like that song?
I don't like that song.
Uh-oh, two policemen going at it already.
It's only appropriate, today is Bob Marley's, he would have been 70 today, so, a little reggae.
Sounds kind of cool. Mike, what do you think about law enforcement and police officers?
I think that it's necessary to have laws. Obviously, you got to follow things, that's just how it is. It depends. Any country you're in, it dates back to the Roman Empire, even before that, there's always been some sort of form of enforcement. You need to have it. If not, you have total anarchy.
What was it, a policeman back in the day? Wasn't it just for protecting somebody's assets? Wasn't that the idea of a policeman? You guys could jump in at any time and cut me
back
off.
in Roman times, the people who were the actual police were actually the army. So in the United States of America, it is actually against the law to use the military against its own citizens. That's why we see the militarization of the police getting all these MRAPs and crazy-ass guns. Their uniforms are starting to, look at what happened in Ferguson. They're pointing guns at people. They ask people in the military, they're like, we never point a gun at somebody unless we're going to shoot. So,
wow. That's
yeah,
big.
This is just something, you correct me if I'm wrong. This is just stuff I started reading about. But since we can't use the military against our own citizens in the United States of America, it makes a lot of sense why 1033 was passed and the military was actually against it. But,
well,
Congress,
just to counter that, I was reading up on the Rodney King issue.
Yeah.
And when that thing popped off, the police weren't ready. These people were destroying cars, throwing
was
things
Rodney
at cars.
King ready though? You could argue this.
What do you mean is Rodney King ready?
Was he ready for that beating? I don't think.
Okay, was he consuming drugs? Was he flying down the street ready to smash into anyone in his sight?
He was.
There are things to it, but my point was that the people that were destroying the city, the police were not ready for, and they were not going to stop. And until they called the military, did those people finally stop after they killed 53 people and about 800 people got injured? So
yeah, the thing is about with police, it's a lot deeper. You get into
2,000
blacks
people,
and whites. There's
people.
a lot of factors, a lot of variables. It's a lot of poor versus rich. It's a lot of people living on welfare, people who have nothing to live for. A lot. There's no jobs for them. A lot of times because they're black, they're getting discriminated against. So you need things like the civil rights movement, affirmative action. There's been 400 years where there's white people have been able to advance more than black people. They were sold as slaves. People forget the true history of this country. It was a business.
Well,
So there's a lot of facts that you got to interject because it's a very complex situation.
Okay, let's go back. This is Harry. Let's go back and talk, because I heard a lot of keywords there of violence and beating and throwing things and guns. And let's go back to what it is to be a police officer. Dan, why did you become a police officer?
That was one of my questions.
Well, probably when I was young, it was for different reasons than what it actually turned out to be. When you're young, you think that you're going to be helping people and benefiting society and all that. But that's really not the reality of it.
Right. That's what I was going to say, is that the key term is when someone goes into law enforcement, that their key things, usually what they say in the interviews is when they're, up against the panel, against, 2 or 3 in the panel.
Multiple interviews?
It's usually, it's multiple people in one interview.
Gotcha.
And one of the questions typically is, why do you want to become a police officer?
Correct.
And you hear all those answers of, I want to make a difference in the community. I want to provide for my family with a good, stable career. I want to make a change for the better. When it comes down to it, what is your experience, Dan?
My experience is really none of those happened. I did make a good living for my family. That's true. It was a stable job. But I didn't get the feeling that I was really helping people. I didn't really get the feeling that I was doing good for the community, because we were looked at so negatively that we had to work hard, very hard at
just winning people over, just
proving some of the things that you brought up.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to ask you, and we can table it for later, is, show me the proof where police officers are discriminating against black people. Show me the proof.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a discussion about it. But
I
the problem is out. It gets out in the media.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's going on, and then everybody believes it because some newscaster said it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
and I agree.
I want to
agree with
interject really quick because there are videos of policemen beating the crap out of black people before they got their rights. Not to say that they're doing it today, because I think that's what you're referring to today, in this day and age,
Yeah.
2015.
I wasn't here in the 1950s and 60s as a police officer.
Correct.
I can't speak to how police officers were back then. I'm talking about how hard we've worked since then, certainly since Rodney King, to become, better in the eyes of the community. Not necessarily we had to get better, but in the eye, it's the perception.
Well, when you, again, it goes back to the gangster rap. When you have, NWA saying "F the police," and I mean, there are, it's on the radio stations. You're watching movies where they portray that black, and it's the white cop with the black people, and they keep doing these movies. They regurgitate it. It's kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street. They keep doing the same thing. They keep doing the same thing with all these movies. But one thing I wanted to bring up, I found an article. I'm gonna actually try to pull it up. But one thing that it said that nowadays lynchings are surpassed by police pretty much killing black men. And I want to bring up this article because that would be some proof. And I agree with you. Where's the proof? Show me this. And from my experience, I think communities approach police officers in a negative way. I remember in the previous podcast, you had stated that back in the day, your mother told you if you need help, you go to the police officer. You ask him, he's here to help you. And nowadays, it's like, no, you're bad. I'm going to call the police.
Well, yeah, it's obvious. With all these calls that we respond to, regarding domestic violences, oftentimes the police take mommy and daddy away. So when the little kid is growing up 3, 4, 5 years old, they're police officers are seen negatively by children because they're the bad guys that took mommy and daddy away.
How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as, I know you're a police officer, you're in your job, you're in a role, you're clocked in, you're getting paid, but on the human aspect, there's empathy, you do have a heart, how obviously you've been in situations where the parents have to go and you see the children and, the conditions they're living in, like, how does that make you feel? Or how does that affect your normal life with your family?
It's that fine switch that we all have that you learn to turn on and off. Okay. And so it's those things that you just don't bring home with you. There's a lot of things, a lot of negative.
Yeah, I could only imagine.
Whether you're in security or any type of enforcement, you're dealing with just the negative. And over time, it does get to you. It breaks you down, and you just have to find that fine switch to where you can find an outlet to vent, to just let it go. But you really do have to turn that switch on and off. Otherwise, if you bring it to your personal life, it really affects you negatively.
Right. I wanted to read the reason why I wanted to be a policeman. One of the reasons why I was highly interested in law enforcement was the training. Even though I don't remember the books that most of the college courses that I've taken, a lot of the education and the science of criminology that I've taken has opened my eyes to awareness and consciousness and knowing my surroundings, which a lot of people seem to be like zombies nowadays. They're text messaging in their cars. They really don't get an understanding of your surroundings, where your life can be a jeopardy at any moment. And when I go to work, I always think of the worst possibility, a terrorist attack going down, and what am I going to do to be prepared? Someone having a heart attack, do I know where the stuff is to help people? But in my heart at the time, I wanted to stop crime, criminals, and gang members. But the only thing about today's me that's different from the college me is I began to notice that, like you were saying earlier, people are programmed. From children to adults, you have people that are programmed. An example of that back in the day was a TV show called Beavis and Butthead, one of my favorite shows. A 5-year-old kid was watching
fire.
Exactly, Beavis, who was always saying fire in Ohio, and he burned down the mobile home, his mother's mobile home, and his 3-year-old sister got burned inside the mobile home because of it. And that's, some people would argue, well, that's a 5-year-old kid and they don't know any better. Well, do gang members really know any better? I mean, when this music is constantly being pushed, drugs are in their location, easily accessible. What do you guys feel about gang members, Harry?
Well, in general, I think that a lot of it has to do with the news and media influence on what goes out over the air these days. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's sensationalized, almost all of it's sensationalized. For example, we talked a little bit about race and everything else, and there was a news story just yesterday where a black family had their, in like Manhattan Beach, it's a really nice house, they had their front door firebombed.
Wow.
Now, whether it's a race thing or not, and you really have to dig a little deeper. Maybe it wasn't race. Maybe this family was just a jerk, and they happen to be black. And what they did was kind of deserved in a way.
But the media hypes it up.
They hype it up as possibly racial because they were black.
What is the agenda behind this? Because Michael Brown,
right?
Eric Gardner, Dan, you were correct about the no charges filed on this guy or the policeman because of the chokehold act. We were saying that's not cool. That's illegal in New York. They passed a law saying you can't chokehold somebody anymore, and the police were able to walk away because this guy had a rap sheet super long. And I kind of disagreed with that personal case. I think that Michael Brown was definitely Michael Brown was at fault. You can see the video in the liquor store. The guy had a temper. He's pushing people. He's stealing. I mean, his attitude was completely just garbage. And his mom's over here defending him. You know, when they asked, you know, she's always like, he was a great boy, and you know, he loved to talk and hug, and then they bring up the liquor store incident, and she's like,
right. And you look at the pictures that are passed through the news media, it's really all sensationalized, just like back to, you know, the rap music and everything else. It's just the society we live in these days, and what's portrayed over the air to the masses.
So do we have a social responsibility? I mean, isn't the violence we display through our media a health issue? Isn't violence a health issue? Dan or Harry, anybody want to answer that? Mike?
I don't know if it's a health issue, but I mean, let's bring this all back to where it needs to be, and that is the parents need to take a more active role in their kids' lives.
The way things used to be, moral goodness, if you want to say.
But you say bring the parents more involved, but we have 2-something million people incarcerated right now. What do you think most of those parents, or most of the people are parents? You know, most of those people locked up are parents.
That's exactly my point.
How do we fix that? How do we correct that?
Well, why do you say we? I mean, I don't know that it's society's problem.
Well, we are society, Dan.
Yeah, but I mean, you say it's, you know, we need to fix that.
I think we do.
How do we even begin?
Let's define we though.
Because let me break it down for you. We need to get rid of the media, the mainstream. We have to rebuild it. Like Larry's saying, they sensationalize this. This is a reward for doing dirt, for being bad, for hating cops. All this information. I've always asked, why don't they teach children? I know they have the DARE and all that, but why don't they teach children, junior high kids and high school kids, how to interact with police, what a policeman's job is and what they're looking for, and they're not your enemy? Why don't our schools teach that?
Honestly, I don't think that's necessary. I don't
Why
think
is that
that's
not necessary?
This is not the school's responsibility to teach that. I think it's more of the parents' responsibility to teach that.
Is it not a teacher's job to teach how to have manners in a classroom? If a child's misbehaving, they correct the child, and when the child is out of control, they send it to the principal. The child to the principal. These are the same tools that policemen use.
Right. I think since we've been out of school for quite some time, it's changed a lot. And my sister-in-law, she's a teacher's aide, so she tells me a lot what goes on with the special education kids. She deals with a lot of the kids who have autism and other.
And that's time consuming.
Problems.
I mean, you're spending double the time than you would on an average person.
You would, and oftentimes you're very limited now on the bureaucracy of what goes on in schools, on what you can do to actually
Common Core.
Punish kids, I guess, if you want to say. You know, you can't slap them on the hand. All you can say is time out, and even then, if you give a child
why are
a
you
time
yelling
out,
at my kid?
Exactly.
Yeah,
you can't do anything anymore in school.
You can't.
And that's one of the issues right there is
and you just said we. You just said we. Why can't we, as a society, discipline our children so they have manners and they have an opportunity to make it into the system rather than become a victim of the incarceration that's 2.4-something million people, the highest in the world?
1 out of 100.
It all comes down to liability and lawsuits. When I was a child and I was in kindergarten, you know, we had the principal who had a paddle on the wall and said, if you guys are bad, you're going to come in and see this paddle. Of course, that was just a threat. That wasn't going to be done, but you can't do that these days.
Me and Mike had a huge argument on this because he feels that teachers have they should not be spanking people. But I said, if your child is behaving, your child's never going to see that paddle. It's the ones that are disrupting everyone else's education, the ones that are ruining it for everyone, like me, who should have been spanked, but I wasn't. I didn't have a father.
But exactly what Harry said, it's the liability and the lawsuit.
Nowadays it is. So and that's why you're right.
America has always been that way, though. It's always been about lawsuits.
So let's
and the
bring
law.
what we just talked about.
But you stated that it was wrong. You stated that.
I still believe it's wrong.
It's not wrong to me.
It's up to the parents. That's what I believe.
Let's
Look
talk
at
about
Harry
what
and Dan.
happened in school. Now let's transfer it to police. Now, Dan, what do you think about the limits and liability of police? Because school children can't even be spanked anymore for misbehavior.
It's the same thing. I mean, police officers are under even more of a microscope now than they were 30 years ago when I got into it.
Because of cameras and technology,
But
right?
see, cameras and videos and mics and things like that are not necessarily a bad thing for police officers to be wearing, because 99% of the time it helps prove the officer did it right, as opposed to
exactly.
and
I completely
did
agree.
it wrong.
And I want to bring that up because it's the same thing with the video as they're showing on the media, the 15-second clip, but they're missing like the 10 minutes prior. You know what I mean? Why did it get to that point? Like, was he instructed multiple times? And that's why I can't believe everything I see on the TV is just so biased. It's prejudice. We're all prejudiced as humans against one thing or another. That's just how it is. And so as police officers, did you ever deal with any bad students to where it was so bad that the principal couldn't even like discipline this child, that he had to be arrested?
Of course.
Wow.
Many times.
That actually shocks and surprises me. I don't know if it was just like, I don't know, I guess it was different when I went to high school or the high school I went to. I mean, kids got in trouble, but it was nothing like guns or like I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but like what are some examples that you could give us?
Well, even in our previous job that I worked with Lewis and Dan here as well, and for the kids that we see that are 16, 17 years old, we're dealing with cocaine and meth and
at 16
and at 16 years old, no joke. And just times are different these days.
And I think today even younger.
How do you guys feel about the marijuana legalization in Colorado and Oregon?
We're a little, I don't know, in my opinion, I'm a little indifferent because we went through all those years trying to enforce that, and now the law has changed, and so it's like almost all the work and things we did in the past, it was almost for nothing.
Kind of like the drug war in a way.
Right.
Gotcha. But I mean, because more kids are dying, more people actually are dying because of painkillers, like the prescribed by a doctor with a degree. And that's mind-boggling to me that they just demonize marijuana so much, but yet you have everybody with the wine and the Budweisers, and I mean, it's pretty hypocritical, double standard. But as far as the media, what do you think the media needs to portray? Because when I watch Cops, I'm usually emceeing minorities being the one at the opposite end. I mean, that's just from most of the stuff. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but
when we're watching Cops, we usually say he's doing that wrong.
Yeah, but I can feel that very easily for you, and it's not a popular thing to say.
Yeah.
But I think it used to be when I was a cop, 87% of the crimes were committed by minorities.
Yeah.
So
it's the truth.
Everybody says, well, all I see is you arresting Hispanics and black people. And, well, unfortunately, they were the ones committing the crimes.
Yeah.
If you look at our prison population, I think that number is pretty close to the same of who's in prison today.
Yeah.
So, it looks like we're being prejudiced. It looks like we're being biased.
You do the crime, you do
we're
the
not.
time.
Right. We call it as we see it. Yeah. Someone runs a red light. That's a person running a red light. It's not who's in the car. It's the car running the red light. And then we find out who's inside.
As I get older, I agree with that more because, when I was young, I used to be a dumb little punk too, testing authority. But nowadays it seems like kids test authority more. Like, I mean, they'll flip them off for no reason. Or
any authority.
Any authority, yeah.
Right.
But mostly like with the police, how do you guys feel about like the riots in Ferguson before and once the media got involved, the riots after?
But the riots were the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. There was no proof of anything. All we had was a bunch of hearsay information about what happened. And people started rioting before any facts were even presented. So how as a police officer, how do you win that battle when it's already been determined in your mind and in the media's eyes that this officer shot an unarmed black kid, had his hands up, had his back turned. This was the information that was coming in.
This is all allegedly,
it was all alleged. And then as it turned out, none of that happened. And it was proven that none of that happened, yet people still go around with their hands up in the air and saying, hands up, don't shoot.
Do you think it was smart as to what they did in waiting almost a month before releasing the information of the secret jury and all the stuff that they weren't going to press or indict?
Well, it wasn't a secret jury. It was a grand jury who in that state, they do not release the names of who
I
the
guess
grand
that's why I
jury
refer
is.
to it as secret, because there's no information given pretty much.
Well, but that's the state's laws.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like the grand jury went in there and said, I don't want you to release my name. That was the agreement going in, is that, is that no names are released and it's all done in a, well, if you can call it secretive, but it's not. It's just, not open to the public.
Okay. And both of you were previously police officers. What kind of activities did you go through, like on your 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? Like, what was a day in
He
your
wants
life?
a story.
Yeah, some story, something,
First of all, it's not 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Okay.
I don't think I ever worked 9 to 5 Monday through Friday in my life.
So that's another thing you got to, adjust to,
You guys
right?
work
Because
12,
family
right?
time.
3 12s? 3 12-hour
It
shifts?
varies. I've done 16-hour days. Easy. Depends on what happens. You could do back-to-back 16-hour days.
And I don't think the general public understands that. So the stress that comes with working 16 hours straight, I mean, is not sitting down in an AC with
But
the
is that
internet,
because you took that kind of a shift? Because people would say, well, it's not our fault that you are working 16-hour shifts and you're grumpy and you want to pull your gun out on us, because it does affect your
mood.
behavior.
Right. Well, let's go back to pulling out guns, because we always have that negative connotation of cops always wanting to point guns.
Yeah.
I only had to draw my gun less than a dozen times ever on duty. I never had to shoot it on duty either, but you're always going through that training. You're always constantly on alert, looking over your shoulder, watching your back. Those are the good officers that are going to survive, because that's when it comes down to it. You want to go home at the end of the day. You want to survive, whether you're stopping someone for speeding or you're just responding to a call of my cat went up a tree. You're always on alert for something.
And this is why I have an issue with Dan saying that what responsibility do we have teaching children about law enforcement, because they don't know why you have your gun. You're holding your gun because they're reaching in their pockets. They don't know why. They have no clue about law enforcement. They don't even know any type of studies like that I've read, like multicultural, different public policy, things that you've studied, have a master's degree in. How do they comprehend anything that you're doing? They're just looking at a man with a gun telling them orders.
Well, they don't, and I don't think they ever will until they actually do the job and find out what it's like. It's something you have to experience.
I believe that.
There's really no way to explain it.
But there's a good way to learn. I mean, I never experienced pulling out a gun and get down on the ground, but I have a bachelor's degree in criminology, so I could understand exactly what you guys go through. Do I know the emotional state of it, being at that moment, ready to take someone's life? I don't have the slightest clue.
I think that if you have a job in security, if one has one in security, it comes pretty close to becoming a police officer.
I try to point that out to people. Guys come up to me and go, "You fake cop, you toy cop, you're gonna kick me out," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm trying to work with you here. What's going on here?"
Exactly, that's my point.
I actually think it's worse in security.
I agree, because you're so limited on what you can do.
And in most security jobs, you can't defend yourself.
No.
So I mean, at least as a police officer, you have the tools, the training to defend yourself.
Right. Or even control. That's the thing, is most individuals, they don't have the self-control to control themselves. And so easily, when someone goes into handcuffs, those handcuffs easily come just right off again.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand is, when the handcuffs go on, that doesn't necessarily mean you're under arrest.
Yeah.
It's just a control technique. Right.
For your safety.
So going back to what police officers actually do, I would say that they're mediators. Being a police officer, you're really a mediator to go into situations to find out what's going on and to solve the issue, whatever's going on, whether it's, say, break it up, go home for the day, get out of here, or I need to arrest you. You need to sleep this off because you're completely drunk in the cell, and then you're just out back the next day and you're on your way.
Yeah, going into people's homes, though, without a warrant, I understand there are reasonable search.
Exigent circumstances is one of them.
Someone's getting raped, someone's screaming for help. You
Right.
go in there, you do what you gotta do. But a lot of people are complaining that police are going to their homes without permission. There's no crime. There's no reasonable search.
Well, aren't they covered under like the Patriot Act and the NDAA?
No,
No,
I don't think so.
not
You're
for
not?
that. But
No?
but there's a number of reasons why we are allowed to go into people's houses
Without a warrant.
without
Probable
a warrant.
cause.
Absolutely.
And I don't know about you, Dan,
Smells-
but
That's the word
but
I was looking
I
for.
didn't really like going to people's houses if I really had to.
I
would
didn't
just
either. I'd rather them come out. But
Right.
Yeah.
but
you,
the
you don't
thing
know if they have a
is,
gun or something.
and this is the one that people just don't get. The wife answers the door. There's been a call. She's got a black eye, or she's got a red mark on her face, and she says, everything's fine, officer. Everything's fine. Everything's good.
Nothing
Don't
happened.
worry.
I'm by myself. No,
I fell or
Scary,
whatever.
man.
Wow.
The police officers have a right to go in and make sure that she's telling the truth. Make sure that there's not somebody behind the door with a gun
Yeah.
pointed at her, or it's usually her husband, boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah.
In my mind, because I've been around so many twisted people, women that hit themselves in the face
That happens too.
and then
Yeah.
say my husband beat me up because they want to, the home and the property, and they want to take them to court and take everything they got. I mean, that's a possibility, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, but that's that's one of those things that a court will figure out. If we go in we have reasonable cause to believe that he did that to her, his knuckles are red, whatever, then we'll let the court determine that. It's better than leaving and having him kill her.
I hear you. Well, my point was just that people do make up lies, and I'm sure you guys have been around them so much like I have that I have no trust in people anymore.
Well, that's what it's all about as a police officer. You're always constantly being lied to. Like, I pulled you over for your cell phone. I wasn't texting, I wasn't talking, look here. And, they'll erase their messages or something at the last minute. You're dealing with constantly people just lying to you all day long. Yeah. So the job is just very negative all day long with everything you're dealing with.
And then my wife wonders why I don't trust people.
Right.
It's not your fault, and it's not my fault for feeling this way. It's just us putting our guard up because, hey, you're not gonna fool me again. And that's my thing, is that I got respect for people. I want to help them out. But when I'm lied to, I feel like I understand you don't want to get in trouble, but there's other ways of solving this thing. You should have done it in the first place. That's the main issue that I'm having.
I want to touch on this article that I came by yesterday. The article the headline reads, Bronx public defenders resign after appearing in Uncle Murda music video. And I just want to read some of the lyrics, and these are public defenders, right, in the music video for this guy. And I want to get and this is what kids are listening to these days. It says, I'm just going to quote it. It says, I spit that shit the streets got to feel. Uncle Murda reps on the track. For Mike Brown and Sean Bell, a cop got to get killed. 'Cause I'm black, police think they got the right to shoot me. No jail for them, their punishment is death duty. They're either killing us, throwing us in the cage. Martin Luther King is rolling over in his grave. What happened to the dream? Time to start killing these coppers. If Malcolm X was alive, he'll be next to me with them choppers. Choppers are AK-47s.
Let me touch on that real quick, because I feel like Martin Luther King, I was talking to some woman yesterday at work, and she was telling me that, when she teaches class, there's a lot of Hispanic kids that are just very rude, and there's an interpreter because she doesn't even speak the language. And she tells the interpreter, tell them why their parents came here. What do their parents come over here for? And then all the kids get quiet, They get it real fast. They came here for a better life. The same thing I feel like with Martin Luther King. The dude put his life on the line, was killed so you could have rights. Yeah. And now you mean to tell me you're gangster rappers, you got your pants coming off your ass? What are you doing?
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying.
Let's clear something up about they quote Martin Luther King, and they have no clue what Martin Luther King stood for.
Yeah. They're kind of twisting it.
Martin Luther King was trying to get society to look at everybody as a colorless society. It had nothing to do with entitlements to minorities or, he quotes Martin Luther King in there completely in the wrong sense, which tells me that he's ignorant and he has no idea what Martin Luther King stood for.
But this is what the kids are listening to. Right. They're getting this is. I'm just trying to give input on this rap.
Okay, if your parents were teaching you about Martin Luther King and about what he really stood for, then maybe, it might still be happening, but maybe it wouldn't be happening. Yeah. So I get back to my point about parenting. If a parent heard somebody using Martin Luther King in that context, I'd grab them by the neck and say, hold on a second. That's not what Martin Luther King stood for. And let me explain to you what Martin Luther King stood for so that you understand.
You're better off quoting Adolf Hitler.
So for me, I don't have any kids, but I have a little kitten, okay? And this little kitten, I'm like his parent to him, okay? Yeah. So, he's a pretty well-behaved little cat. And so, one example is he'll know not to go to the fish tank. But oftentimes he'll look right at me. He'll go up to the fish tank, put his paw up there, look at me, and be like, what? I'm testing you right now. I'm seeing how far I can take this.
Pets do that.
That's what that means to me. Those lyrics you just read to me is they're testing you on how far you can take it. Just like OT Genesis with his I'm in Love with the Coco song.
Yeah.
That's a big hit right now.
Yeah.
It's like, how far do you want to take this? The guy is out there doing cocaine with guns and everything, saying that it's okay to do coke, kids.
Yeah.
This is this what our society is really coming to? You're really pushing those limits to say, how far can I take this?
This is why I'm making a life sacrifice to go after the mainstream, TMZ, all this garbage all over our television. I sit in the break room and I'm looking up at this stuff and people are just soaking it in and I'm like, what the hell am I listening to?
Yeah,
what
you
is
have
this?
little 5-year-olds singing "I'm in love with the Coco." They don't even know what it means, what context it is.
Society is so enamored by this the National Enquirer type news.
Yeah,
That
TMZ.
you just can't get enough of it. Everybody wants to know what everybody's doing. Everybody wants to know what this celebrity's doing. Everybody wants to know what that celebrity's doing.
Well, I think it's right in their
I
faces.
can't
and
stand that stuff.
It's right in their faces. So how do you expect them not to look when that television? We're like bugs, you know. We're attracted to the light. We want to see that screen and see what's on it. And it's sad that TMZ is our news. It's our information today. You watch the news, Fox 11, and they're going today. Britney Spears. It's like I got better things to learn about than Britney Spears.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you look at news for exactly what it is, take it with a grain of salt. It's entertainment.
Entertainment.
It
Yep.
really is.
Today, now it is.
Even nowadays, between CNN and MNBC and Fox and all, it's entertainment. It's. I mean, I don't even know what's real anymore. I don't even know what information's true and what's not.
You got to watch BBC. That's why. That's the
True.
real news.
I'm not watching. I'm not
like,
watching BBC. But who's
I like RT.
Yeah, RT's
who's
good.
the newscaster? Williams.
Oh, the Brian Williams.
Brian
one?
Williams.
The guy that
who
lied.
just admitted that he lied about something that happened 12 years ago when he
The
was
only
in-
reason he admitted it though is because he was getting called out by the actual people on that
Who
helicopter.
the hell's
which,
Brian Williams?
Oh my! He's a journalist.
NBC, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like one of the most popular newscasters on NBC.
I was
And
just reading an article that he was lying about something in Katrina as well. I mean, is this guy credible? This is the guy delivering our news. What about all these other
Well,
journalists and reporters?
Harry
you
and
know?
Dan, I've been 5 years sober from television. I'm super in heaven now because I watch what I want to watch. I find information that I feel like is worth searching for. I don't pay attention to the television. I'll look up at the break room for about 5 seconds and I'm already disconnected.
Well, TV is not a bad thing, you know, but the good quality TV shows just really aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
They're so difficult
Yes.
to
So
find
if
now.
the majority of it is bad, you're going to tell me that it's good?
There's not a lot that's good, you
That's
know.
what I'm
but
saying.
TV is really for entertainment value.
It
if you
is.
look
It
back,
is.
that's what it was there for
it
from
kind of
day
always
one.
has been.
Well, I disagree
Yeah.
because you had the news telling us about the Vietnam War. You would see explosives going off and people getting killed at the war. They'd have footage, and people wanted to stop that war because they saw what was going on. And yeah, you had I Love Lucy, which was a positive message, but it was entertainment. But I'm talking about the news was actually trying to fill us in on what was really bad for us. Now I think everything is a profit, you know?
Oh, it completely is.
Well, we don't have any Walter Cronkites anymore.
Who's Walter
Unfortunately,
Cronkite?
Right.
Who the hell's that?
well, see, you wouldn't know, but he was a
One
a
of the
news anchor from the
most
50s
well-known
and 60s.
journalists,
and-
right?
Was he a real dude?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look him up.
Was he like a Ralph Nader type dude?
No.
'Cause-
No.
no.
But when he delivered information, when he delivered news, you know, people felt that it was just
Relevant.
information. It wasn't biased. It wasn't tainted. It was just information.
Gave no opinions. It was just that's exactly what happened.
This is what was reported to me, so I'm reporting it to
To
you.
you. And one thing I want to touch on too, because I know we're saying all the gangster rap. I do believe that every genre of music does have a positive message. There is conscious
Definitely.
music, you know, kind of like with hip hop. I just want to say another article that was in the similar website. It's Russell Simmons because he was promoting peace at a Los Angeles high school. I think a kid that was 14 just stabbed another kid that was 13 with like scissors. He ended up dying.
It happened like a week or two ago.
Yeah, just recently. But the reason I want to touch on is because he was just saying, where is it right here? I just want to read what he was saying as regards to the police. He was giving them, you know, just a little bit of information and insight. And it says, Simmons emphasized to the students that the best way to deal with police violence is respect. And it's in quotes. And I think if you approach a cop, you know, with pulling something out of your waistband, I mean, you guys are trained to defend yourselves, right? I mean, if somebody comes up to you like, hey, how you doing? I mean, it's all the demeanor. Have you ever had instances where you thought somebody was armed? They really weren't. They were just not thinking?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
You
the time?
Oftentimes, in the jail system, they're actually trained to keep their hands in their pockets. So oftentimes when they're out in public, they still have that
The habit.
mental memory of wanting to put their hands in their pockets. And you can tell them a dozen times, get your hands out of your pockets, because, you know, there's a reason why we have, you know, the training that we do to have them get their hands out of their pockets. But they're just so wired into doing what they're you know, doing in the jail system that sometimes they can't really think about what they're doing.
Wow.
There was this one video. I wish my internet would let me log in, but a gentleman who was, I guess he ran a stop sign. I don't know if you guys seen this video. It was all over the news. The police officer was following him. He stopped. It was an African-American male. which he gets out the car. The police officer's right behind him, says, "Hey, do you have your license?" And he goes in real quick to reach for his license.
Oh, yeah.
And he turned his back on the police officer, and he reaches real fast in the car, and the police officer pulls out his gun and says, "Stop right there." And the guy turns around real fast, and the cop shoots him. And everyone's, this police officer was fired for all this, but I think he could, you guys, again, working all day long, there's things that kind of slip our police officers' minds. And I think that he could have, at that, thinking back in hindsight, he could have said, "Where's your license?" instead of "Can you get your license?" Because that would have saved his life. Well, he didn't die, but he shot the guy and he fell on the floor. He's like, "Why did you shoot me? Here's my license," And the police officer's like, "Man, I thought you were reaching for something, You can't just reach in your car like that and real fast and think that I'm going to not do anything, So things like that really, the media likes to push out there because there's a lot of confusion and miscommunication. I don't think it's fair. Obviously, the man was shot, which is a big no-no. At the same time, the police officer didn't know what he had in his hands. So,
what about that Tamir Rice one, the 12-year-old in Cleveland?
Yeah, I saw the footage on that.
What's your take on it?
It was kind of hard to see, but the little boy was on a swing, and then he had a gun, right? A BB gun.
Yeah.
And the police came up, and then I don't know if they told him to put the gun down or what, but I just saw him fall on the floor. So
within like 10, 12 seconds.
It was fast, yeah. I mean, they pulled up, boom, he's down. So,
Well,
Yeah.
Dan, I don't know about your training in the academy, but they really stressed in my police academy, and I was trained by one of the best. It was a retired LA PD homicide detective who stressed the importance of lag time, and that's your mental ability to figure out what's going on before it actually happens. So if someone's reaching in their pocket or their coat or their glove box or something like that, you have to be so alert that you have to think, what are they going to do next? Are they reaching for something? Because by the time they do reach for whatever they're trying to reach, by the time you can actually defend yourself, whether it be your pepper spray, your baton, your gun, whatever different types of weapons you have on you to defend yourself, maybe it's even your hands, you have to mentally prepare yourself for what's going to happen and counteract what they're going to do, because in the end, you're there to go home safe at the end of the day.
And that's what I'm
Correct.
thinking. If you're a police officer, if I'm a police officer, I'm picturing myself in your guys' shoes. I'm going to be one of these officers like, "Hey, man, right away, get your hands out of your pockets real fast." And people go, "Well, why is he telling him that? Why is he so aggressive? Why is he doing this?" It's for my own safety. I don't want to get shot. I don't want to get stabbed. I don't know what that feels like, and I don't want to know what that feels
And the
like.
general public doesn't realize those are the things police officers do daily with the interactions they have with the public and the reasons why they do those things.
What I think would be great, it's impossible, but I think would be great, is anybody who thinks that cops are just out there being cowboys, or who don't trust cops, or who think that they do things wrong all the time, needs to go through some of the training that we went through. A gentleman just did this. It was all over the Facebook and all over the news. He was African American. He was an activist against cops, and he went through some of the training that cops go through. It's called shoot, don't shoot situation, and he said it changed his life because he ended up shooting people that were unarmed as well based on their actions. There's something I used to tell people all the time when I was a cop that would come in and complain about officers, and they turned out to be wrong. I always used to say, "Hey, man, walk a mile in their footsteps." It's impossible to do because if you're not a cop, you can't be you can't just put on a uniform and pretend you're a cop to see what's going on. But try to walk a mile in their footsteps. Try to understand why they do what they do, instead of just being super critical. I don't tell doctors how to do brain surgery because I have no idea. But, the reality is more people die in hospitals from when they're in surgery than they do from police officers. So, but nobody takes on doctors.
I don't trust them.
But nobody takes them on. I mean,
But what about when you are and I don't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry, but just a thought before it leaves. What about when you're in the department, you do see something that like, hey, this isn't cool, and it might be your superior or somebody else. Like, how does this get taken care of in-house where, I mean, there's been corruption like Rampart or something like that hits the media and people have that distrust, and then you have Bell, the city of Bell, where, it's just there's all this distrust that they keep pushing. Do you really think that they do a good job at pretty much finding the bad cookies in the batch and getting rid of them and making things happen, or is there a lot of cover-ups?
I think in general they do a good job of policing themselves.
There's going to be mistakes, of course.
Yeah. But I mean, like, just like for sure, this guy is just not, he's not fit for it. Like, is there like a suggestion box, or would you send an email? Like, I mean, how does it go? Because I mean, you're going against the code. I mean, for movies that I've watched, and I know it's movies, but one of the guy wanted to change his partner or something like that because it was a movie Crash. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Crash. Really good movie, and in the movie,
excellent movie,
right? Really good movie, yeah. And in the movie Crash, like the guy's a partner with him, and they end up pulling over a black couple and navigator, and the guy ends up like filling the wife up or something. But then
he gropes her, he rubs her butt and her crotch, and the other cop was just like
he was just like, he's a rookie, he's just going on here, and this is like LA area, and I know it's a movie, but just a situation. He requests a change, and when he was in his patrol car, nobody was helping him, nobody had his back, everybody kind of churned on him because he's a new fish in the bowl, and everybody else had been there and they're tight and they know what the job entails. I'm not saying it was right that he groped the woman. Later in the movie, she's actually in a crash. He goes to help her. She sees him and she's like, no, don't touch me. But he actually ends up saving her life. So it's a really good movie. I'd recommend you check it out.
It's a good twist.
Yeah, it's a good twist. But like, as far as that, do you think that they still do a good job?
I think they do a good job, but going back to what you said about kind of being the newbie in an organization, and you have many different jobs and their organizational culture. That's oftentimes when you're going through the academy and the training for a police officer. Usually they talk about street survival. I'm sure you're familiar with this, Dan, and this is termed station survival. What do you think about that, Dan? In your opinion of station survival? When I term the word station survival, that's becoming a part of the organization and wanting to assimilate like the rest and do things like they do in your department, because every department's going to be different, whether it's a big one like the California Highway Patrol or the Sheriff's Department, or down to a little department where you have basically 2 officers, a sergeant, and that's it for each shift, because your city's so small. And a lot of people don't realize that, and sometimes depending on the overlap, some cities don't have any coverage at all for about an hour or so, because the manpower it takes to pay this person to be on the streets, it costs a lot.
Is it a lack of funding for the state or the federal, or what do you think is the reason for that?
Oftentimes it's a lack of funding. It's also how the city manager proportions the budgets and funding.
I see.
That's often what it comes down to is you have your different grants and your different funds, and you have to spread it up appropriately.
Got to make it work.
The police usually have huge expenditures, so they take usually the majority of a city's budget. So it costs a lot for officers to be on the street, and it could be anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000 for an average police officer, and that's a good living wage, and that's the reason why people want to become police officers. But if you want to get in and keep your job as a rookie, as a newbie, or a boot, if you want to call it
a boot,
yeah,
boot.
You're in or you're booting,
right? You have to really just assimilate, become like everybody else, and do what they do, mimic what they do to survive the station. Otherwise, you're not going to pass your probation.
Gotcha.
However, I agree with you to a certain extent, but there's that little thing that you're kind of born with, or at least you develop in your first couple of years of life, called integrity. And again, everything that I say comes back to parenting and how you're brought up. A lot depends on what the situation is.
Correct.
But I don't want to work with somebody that is out there abusing other people, or out there being a racist or whatever. I don't want to work with that person. So I'm going to do what I can to get that person out of the field, out of law enforcement. Am I going to be looked at as a bad guy? You know what? I think in the long run, no. I'm not. I think everybody agrees with me. They just won't take the step to do something about it.
Can I say something about integrity? Go ahead. You want to finish?
Well, I'm just saying it depends on the situation.
Of course.
I mean, I was involved in things where I was a supervisor, and there might have been a little too much force being used or something on a suspect. I had to weigh what I thought was excessive and not excessive.
Yeah.
And I think I told this story last time I was in about, a guy who had put 2 cops in the hospital and it was our job to go out and arrest him. We knew where he was, and we had a plan. We went in, we got him, and one officer was, I think kneeing him or something on the side of the head, and I just simply walked up to him and said, "Enough."
Yeah.
Now, technically, he was using too much force.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's not like he was beating a 6-year-old kid for no reason.
Or a woman, yeah.
And in my experience, I've seen the same thing, to where we were looking for this suspect that committed a burglary, and he was high on meth and running from my partner. And you know,
It
when
must have been really quick.
it was very, very fast. Things go down very fast. He
Wow.
actually came right in my direction. He came right my way. He complied. I got him in cuffs right away, you know, but the detectives who were plain clothes came up and, you know, they started, you know, jabbing him in the ribs a little bit, and I had to, you know, say, whoa, we got him. He was already in custody.
Yeah.
So sometimes in the heat of the moment,
The
things like that,
frustration, yeah.
right? Things like that happen. You
And
know,
not only
but-
that, it's like I'm trying to go home alive, and like you just made me almost do something,
Right.
or you could have done something.
But
that
emotions
mentality,
are
yeah.
high, and
Of
you know,
course.
adrenaline. Sometimes you just have to really step back and say,
And
"Oh,
we're
whoa,
human.
whoa!" Exactly.
We're human. And
Everyone
again,
is.
And again, you said drugs, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of people that you deal with are under the influence of some sort. I mean, my brother-in-law always tells me, he's like, nothing good happens after 12. You know, when everybody's been drinking and everything. And it's so true. I mean, I honestly have had a lot of interaction with different, across Orange County, different types of police. I do see the differences, but a lot of the times, hey, officer, how can I help you? You know, I always have my hands on the wheel, put down the window, turn on the light, put it in park, turn off my car, put on my emergencies. I know the drill.
All those
I'm
things
not
make
g-
us feel a little more comfortable.
And that's what I try to tell everybody. And I preach to them. I'm like, dude, if you have limo tint windows all around, your car smells like weed, you know, like, come on. Like, what do you expect? You know, it's like, I
It's
mean,
push-
Can I
pushing
show you
that
guys
limit
this
like we
video
talked about.
of a man officer who was wearing, I believe it's those little webcams that you can have now on you. What are they called?
Mm-hmm. That's
The
Missouri
GoPros?
also.
GoPro.
Okay. Go back to Snapper Weapons, okay? You got anything that's on post? They haven't hurt me? Okay, just relax for me. Just relax. Relax. Why are you shaking for? Relax.
What are you guys thinking already in your minds?
That he's doing that. He's got something planned. That see, you know, when an officer walks up to you and says, "Do you have any weapons?" and you do, you probably should tell him.
Harry, what are you thinking about?
Exactly. I mean, from his demeanor, you know, he looks like he's up to no good.
All right, let's see.
And I have nothing to do with, you know, I have no opinion about his race or anything like that. It's just his behavior. Everything is always based on behavior.
It's strange.
Right.
There he goes. He's gone. Right here, apparently he drops something and he aims it at the policeman.
Oh, okay, shot fired, shot fired. Get back! Get back! Get back! Get back! Get back, sir! Sir, get back! Get back! I'm not! Get back! Get back, sir! I will two, step it up! Get back!
And I've watched this video a couple of times, and I paused it when he drops the gun. Apparently, the cop later on says that he aimed it. He pointed the gun at him. I didn't see that part. It's hard to tell because the camera's so shaky, and I'm not a video professional,
Get
but
back and I will!
analysis. But I mean, he's got a gun on him. The dude's running. He stops. The gun falls, and he
Right.
does something with that gun. That officer felt like his life was in danger.
And now the officer has to deal with two things now. His crazy friend who is not listening to what he's saying, and now
Exactly.
he's got to watch a suspect who doesn't know if he's out and down or if he's
Yep.
still wanting to fight.
and remember, this is after the whole Ferguson, after the Eric Garner, after all this crazy commotion that's been going on around.
First thing you need to do when your backup gets there is to hook up that guy for interfering.
Whether he's alive or
No.
the suspect.
I mean, yeah, of
Uh-huh.
course they're going to hook him up, the suspect, but the other guy too.
Oh, he's gone.
So that's common protocol. Even if they're deceased, you put handcuffs on them?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're
Absolutely.
saying?
Just a control
Okay.
technique.
Okay.
Just
Taking the gun
control
away.
him.
Okay.
That guy's gone.
Yeah, because sometimes I would question. I was like, why are they putting cuffs on him? He's already dead.
No,
But
let me ask. Why don't they give him CPR or anything? Why don't they do anything to? Because he's bleeding right now, probably, and he's about to go. Are they waiting for paramedics because of health issues? They don't want to touch the blood or something.
I can't answer that because
I
I don't
can't
know. But your first goal here is to check him for more weapons and then get him secured, meaning handcuffed.
Control the scene.
Control the scene, get everybody away. You got a crime scene. You got a lot of things you got to do before you're going to start CPR on somebody.
Right. Because your life might be at risk with these other people in the crowd and stuff.
Absolutely. There's typically what they train you in the academy. There's always another one.
Yeah.
There's always another person there. You just gotta.
If
watch
one
out
guy
for
has
that.
a gun, how many other?
There's gonna be another one. There
Yeah.
always is.
And this is why I'm for open carry. Is that the correct term? Where you can show your gun that you have it and you have paperwork stating it's yours and you can carry it in public instead of hiding it because,
Well, that's tough for police officers
Yeah.
to agree to.
Right.
That would make police officers' jobs a lot harder.
Because people are out of control that don't have the
Well, we don't know. We don't know who knows how to use that thing and who doesn't.
And I think people would kind of test you to go up to them and test their rights, because I've seen so
and
many
they-
videos where the guys are out there with a shotgun.
Well,
I know my rights.
You know,
and,
we live
so-
in California, which is I call it an entitlement state. Everybody thinks that they're entitled to
No,
something.
really?
You know, in Texas, they don't have that problem. I think they have an open carry
I'm right
law
there with you, Dan. I totally agree. I was
And-
going to bring up Texas.
Yeah, well, but in Texas, if a cop walks up to you and you're carrying a gun, you put your hands up, and go, everything's good, officer. You know, you understand how to.
There's kind of a culture there.
And if you
gun
don't
culture, and
do
they know.
that, you're
Yeah.
going to get drawn down on and probably
Yeah.
get shot.
Because you could have like your shotgun on the back of your pickup, right, or something.
But you
like
don't
that,
hear
and-
in Texas. You
Yeah.
don't hear people saying, "I have my rights. I have my rights. I have my right." In California,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
all you hear.
Well, because they have the permission to do it. We don't. They go up to us and say, "Oh, you have a weapon. You're going to go to jail." It's like, wait a second. I have a constitutional right to bear arms in our home and wherever I feel unsafe.
Not if
Well,
you're
actually-
a felon, sir.
Actually, in public,
Well, that's different.
in California, you can carry a gun, open, out, not concealed.
I think that's been repealed, actually.
It just can't be loaded.
I think that's been
Has it?
repealed. But California is that weird state again where you can carry a shotgun, a full length. I don't know what it is, 24 inches or whatever it is. I forgot the length of it. You can carry it semi-concealed, so it's still kind of hanging out, not loaded. And that's completely legal as long as it's not loaded. Not smart again. You'll
Wow.
probably get shot because
Wow.
you just never know.
I just don't see how that's a good idea.
Right, it's a long gun, so it can, technically it can be considered not being concealed because it's, a certain length, so you can't really conceal it.
And I mean,
that's weird.
you could
California
get these
laws for
shotguns
you.
at Big Five. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
at Walmart. I've gone to Walmart
All
where-
day long,
Yeah,
yeah.
they have all these guns, all the ammunition. I mean, it's just handguns that you have to get a
Right.
background check, right?
But besides the whole police, because you guys have been embedded to think like a police officer, try to get out of that for a second and think, isn't it best that more people, good people, American citizens, have the firearm to protect themselves rather than the criminals who will always have firearms and they won't give up their firearms? Harry, what do you think about that?
I think there was a time where that would have been great, but I think we're past that point. We're well beyond that point where people can reasonably think for themselves to say, I can protect myself and my family, whereas right now it's more like, hey, I'm going to show off because I'm going to shoot you because I can, and I defended myself because you yelled at me and said, why do you take my parking spot?
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you,
very
media.
true.
But what are the statistics in Texas? I mean, because it's legal over there. They can carry firearms.
But Texas
why can't
is-
we in California?
But Texas as well, I was reading recently, is that they wanted to let the teachers have weapons, have guns, and
That's
that they're,
awesome.
and they're passing a law saying that if things do happen and shit pops off and the teacher does kill a student, they can't be held responsible or liable for that. Which is, I mean, when I think of school, I mean, I don't think guns. Number one, I really just don't. It just doesn't click in my mind. But if this is where we're getting to in the year 2015 to control our society, we're failing miserably. This is.
I agree. Well, even
you know?
with colleges now, say if you want to be a security officer at a local community college, one of the requirements that they ask for now is that you're a graduate of a police academy or currently enrolled in a police academy.
Wow.
You can't just have some Joe Schmo security experience. They're really stepping up because of all the school shootings and everything else. They want someone who has a background in law enforcement, and they're not necessarily armed either. They just want the background and training so that they can have the eyes and ears to what it's like to be in those stressful situations where there might be an active shooter.
Yeah, correct. And actually at Orange Coast College, I actually graduated from there out here in Costa Mesa. The security were actually wearing pins that had cameras and microphones in them without people actually knowing that they're being recorded and watched, which I don't agree with that. I mean, if you're going to record me, tell me. But I assisted that same community college, and to read about this now, it's kind of mind-boggling to me. And where we're going with this whole Big Brother, we're kind of like the United Kingdom now, where I mean, what they do over there for criminals or families that do stuff, they just have closed circuit television, and they have people in their houses, and they're watching them at all times. I mean, is that where we're going? Is that what we need?
With the technology we have today, why does the NSA already been caught saying they have data from social medias, wiretapping, and emails? Are we becoming a police state, Harry?
Well, if you have nothing, to hide, if you haven't done anything bad, then why not? It doesn't really bother me,
Well, that sounds like some Adolf Hitler stuff when they'd say, "Let me see your papers." We got Scooter on the line. You got a question, brother?
Oh, no, I'm just listening. I kind of wanted to get in a little bit on the debate.
All right. What do you feel about our two policemen here in the house tonight?
Oh, no, I think they're doing a great job.
Cool. You don't hate police then?
No, I don't hate them. Sometimes I feel they some that I've come across have abused their powers.
Such as how?
And where do you live?
No, I was kind of. Oh, I live in Iowa.
Iowa. Okay.
Nice.
Are people entitled? Do people feel entitled out there like they do in California?
Well, I
It's
mean,
a constitutional right,
I
buddy.
I go back to the Constitution. It's our right to have a gun, but I have my concealed weapons permit.
Nice.
And I mean, just the classes that I had to go through for that are crazy.
So you're doing it the correct and legal
but-
way, right?
And that's what I'm saying.
Well, the legal way would be I should be able to carry it any way I want.
But then you went through the steps on so-called our legal system. You went through the steps of carrying it the way you should, and how do you feel about that?
I mean, when I got my concealed weapons permit, it actually scared me because I'm just like what you guys probably come across is then you're in a conflict with, may I have to use this one day? You know, if I'm at a grocery store or something with my wife and kids and somebody's trying to rob the store, what do I do? You know, can I take a life? I don't ever want to take anybody's life, but at the same time, I understand that there's good and bad out there. So, you know, that's kind of how I felt, getting that permit. And I'm actually a gun connoisseur, if you want to go to that part. You know, around here in Iowa, we do a lot of hunting and fishing. And, I mean, when I went to high school, people had gun racks in the back of their trucks, pulling up to school, and it wasn't a big issue. I noticed that it's probably much different in California. So
Now it is. I
Just
saw
a
some
little bit.
I saw some pictures in the 50s of actually high schools teaching you how to shoot a firearm and how to clean a firearm. And even in Russia, like the high schools are still doing that. Like here in California, or America, we're just disturbed. Like too much violence in Hollywood. The movies are displaying the bad guy always wins. So now the bad guy wants to win in our cities. They want to rob banks. I'm hearing a bunch of stuff, and it's like, where have we gone wrong with our media? And I keep pointing that out until I pass away. That's what I'm going to keep pushing. We need to change it. We have to bring it back to the way it was, where we can, we have a responsibility to human beings that can easily be programmed and manipulated by this stuff and become drones, robots, and can cause harm to many, many people. I mean, look at the movie theater incident in Colorado, I believe it was. Nobody had firearms. Firearms were not allowed in the theater. Some wacky kid goes in there and shoots up the joint. I mean, if one or two dudes had guns, they could have stopped, prevented him from killing so many people. And it's always these no-gun zones that get shot up by these maniacs because they know no one has guns. Do I make a point, Scooter?
Well, you don't hear too many people going in and shooting up a police station.
Exactly.
Because they're going to lose. But I mean, how do you guys? I mean, as the two officers that you have there, so if I heard you correctly, you don't really agree with society having guns or people having guns?
It'd be more. They're saying it'd be more of a burden. They're saying it'd be more of a burden towards police because there's too many people now with these egos of, hey, I want to show off. I want to show off my rims on my car. I want to show off my new gun, and you mess with me, and I'm going to use it because I have the right to. And they take it to a whole other extreme. And for the investigators, it must be a pain in the ass for them to try to figure out who's right and who's wrong.
Well, the right to bear arms means you have a right to own guns. It doesn't mean you have the right to carry it everywhere you go.
Right. That takes another permit.
Well, hold on a second. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Bear arms, there's no timetable on it, whether it's at your house or, I mean, hell, back in the day, they used to carry them in churches and hospitals and everything else, and that goes back to that gun-free zones. Now, I have been pulled over before with my concealed weapons permit, and that was a joyous 3-hour, that was a nightmare, more or less. And after that, I did not carry as much because of the way I was treated. What had happened was I had broke the law by going through a stop sign. I did what they call a California stop, and more or less, I mean, the officer came up and said, you did this, so on and so forth. I need your license and registration. Do you have any weapons? And I said, yes, I do. And all of a sudden he goes, well, what do you have? I said, I have a gun. And he pulled out his gun, and it went from hysterical there. So make a long story short, I mean, I was more or less slammed up against the car, and he goes, "You should have told me that immediately." Well, by law, with my concealed weapons permit, I do not have to tell him, but as a courtesy, I did tell him. And make a long story short, I got roughed up pretty bad, and I have a friend that's an officer who I asked to come to the scene. He came, and he goes, you know, he's good, and then all of a sudden, attitudes changed.
Wow.
But I've also had good interactions too. So
Thank
I've
God
had
for
a lot
cops
of
that are friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, but the funny thing is I've also had lots of police officers say, "Hey, you know, it's a great idea. I'm for an armed society." But in California, the attitude might be a little bit different because, you know, maybe there's more crime there versus where I'm at. So, and I can kind of get that.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely what it is. I mean, Iowa, Texas, California, that's why we have our state and our federal, you know, governments.
Hey, we gotta take a quick break, dude.
All right.
Scooter, thanks for the call, man. We'll be right back after this.
Yep.
Open Your Mind podcast.
All right.
People just ain't no good. I think that's well understood. You can see it everywhere you look. People just ain't no good.
That area, so you probably know that area. I have some friends from Placentia and stuff, but I do see the differences because I used to live in Irvine, and out there the cops, man, they want to get you for jaywalking. It's so different, the whole demeanor. But then again, you know, they want to keep the city the way it is. I can't blame them.
City in the country, bro.
Yeah, but I can't blame them. You know, they want to keep it the way it is, and I can't blame them. People paying top dollar for that, and that's why they pay it.
That's
and
just it. There are people that live here demand that.
yeah, exactly. So the funding is definitely different. And then again, I work out here in Anaheim off of Harbor and the 91. And I mean, I go constantly with the homeless people that ride the bus, and just all kinds of different. It's a whole different world, you know. And it was actually a few blocks from where that cop, or not the cop, he is a cop. The dog Bruno got shot. We're literally like 10 blocks from where that happened. There's always something going on there. There's a big gang down the street.
There's just so much out there. I mean, you know about the Atwood gang and everything else. There's a lot of gangs out there. They're just so big, and all they're tagging in the crimes that they do. You know, oftentimes they just do it with each other. You know, they're fighting with each other, and oftentimes the cops just stay out. They're like, you know what, do your thing. Just don't tag up the place that much, you know, and just kind of keep it under control, because you can't. There's only so many police out there, and
one goes to prison, and there's other ones coming in.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, where I'm at is just like but I've learned to interact with a lot of the people. I treat everybody the same. Like, hey, how you doing? You know, if they want to respond back, they can. But I mean, I'm not gonna look down at somebody just because they're homeless or this. You never know what happened in their life, you know. But I do try to interact with them. I have interacted with Anaheim PD. Some of them have been real dicks, but again, they're dealing with people with murders compared to Irvine, where they're dealing with jaywalking tickets. You know what I mean? So
remember we were talking about the word dick? We were like, where does that word come from? Why do we assume it's a penis now?
Oh, yeah.
And then Scepter brought up that it was Richard, but Richard Nixon, who was probably the biggest dick of them all, right? And that's where the term comes from. I've been
such a dick.
I've been studying words like crazy, you know, like the word ass. Like, why do we say, look at that woman's ass? Well, her assets, you know, assets to assess. There's different ways, but people don't really understand the words that they're using. And I'm starting to break them down little by little, but
yeah, like the word dork used to mean a whale's penis.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's funny.
That makes sense now. What about Revenge of the Nerds? You know how they bastardize being smart. Oh, you're a nerd. You're weird because you're not like us. These party animals who are the cool people, and you're the dorks who are on computers all day.
All the jocks.
I never got that. Why? But I do now. It's to make sure our society stays stupid. There's an agenda. Like George Carlin said, you know, they only want us to be able to operate the machines and never ask questions about who's really running the show, and it all public policy. Yeah. What can you tell us about public policy?
Well, I can tell you about the movie Idiocracy. What do you think about that?
I have that DVD. It makes amazing? It's amazing. It makes a lot of sense to me that if we don't change our ways,
Have you seen that, Dan? It's an excellent movie.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's about the future, basically, and our downhill slope of society.
Yeah, basically goes to show that the stupid people offspring more, where the smart people, like Harry here and his lady, they wait to have children when they can afford it. They have their stuff together. They can buy a house. Same thing with you, Mike. You're married.
Yeah.
You don't have any kids. I don't have any kids.
Yeah,
But
they're
wait,
expensive.
I'm 36, turning 37. I still have no kids.
I'm going on to 32 with no kids.
I'm 52, no kids. So
Really?
I have a step kid, but
Wow.
that's it. So
You saved a lot of money, my friend.
I decided long ago that I wasn't going to bring a kid into this world. And
Yeah, it's a
was-
cold
I'm
world,
leaning
man.
towards that too. I don't know.
My wife isn't having it. You know, I'm Mexican, so I'm 32. They're like, "What's wrong with you?"
And you have what, 8 kids?
None. But that's the thing. The pressure's on, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm really trying to do what I want to do. I agree with Lou. You know, we kind of both took an oath. Just like, I know it's not like a police officer oath, but we took an oath that we were going to do what we do, and you know, we're going to get demonized for by certain people. I might not, you know, get, you know, some people, when you talk politics and religion, it's not a good mix. You know, even their point of view on police. You know, one time I was let me tell this story really quick. I was at Pachanga, and I was playing in a free tournament from Facebook, and I was like, free, okay, you know, I could win something.
I love Pachanga. That's
Yeah,
a great place.
right. And you know, the poker room, you know, it's pretty big. I don't know if you ever go up there.
No, not really. I just sit on the slots and just throw my money away. You know, like,
Gotcha. So I'm up there, you know, I'm doing pretty good, and I get moved from one seat to another, and boom, I'm in a seat, and this little lady had a little pig, and me being who I am, I was just like, oh, I'm like, oh, what's up with the pig? You know, she's like, oh, you know, the police officers. And I couldn't help but chuckle, you know, and I was just like, she's like, yeah, it's my favorite animal, and something about police officers and my whole family, they love pigs. And me, you know, what do they call cops? Pigs. And I go off and like, oh, yeah, you know, Irvine, they have a lot of pigs. And I didn't mean it in that way, but, you know, I've learned to shut my mouth. But turns out her daughter is an Irvine cop. And I'm playing poker here with all these people, and this lady, I swear she lost on purpose just because she didn't want to put up with me anymore. But there was this other lady next to me, and we're just making jokes. But me, I've had negative and positive encounters with both cops. Have you guys ever been called pigs or, you know, flipped off to your face?
Wait, hold on. What is a pig? What is the?
That's. I'm proud to be called a pig.
Really?
I agree.
Pride, integrity, guts. That's what it stands for.
Oh, you guys put a flip
That's a
on
beautiful
that.
flip.
No, I'm serious. That's what it stands for.
I thought it was this.
Well, that's how we represent it.
Yeah.
But it stands for pride, integrity, guts.
And when I'm flipped off, you know, on the
Yeah.
road for no reason, you know, I take it as like a wave, like a hi, good afternoon to you too. You know? At least you saw me, cool.
Yeah,
You know?
and no, and one thing I want to say is like obviously we change over time. Again, I'm about to be 32. This was honestly maybe 5-6 years ago, but since then I was like, you know what, Mike, you can't. Not everybody gets my sick humor. I have really like sarcastic humor where people really get offended sometimes, but that's just how I grew up. We grew up talking shit to each other's face, and that's how I grew up, and it's different. But there's a time and a place for all that, and I learned that in the poker room, it's better to just shut up and play your cards. But you know, I like to drink a lot, and plus it was a free tournament. But I've learned to, you know, sometimes I made that person uncomfortable, and it actually made me uncomfortable that I made that person uncomfortable because I felt bad because I'm not that person. You know, I just like to joke a lot, and that's with the podcast. I like that we have, you know, ex-officers or people who are officers coming in and giving their point of view because I have an open mind to see your point of view and other people's point of view.
What I'm trying to do with
Yeah.
these guys here in this room right now is also open their minds because the show is called Open Your Minds
Yeah, exactly.
Podcast. But I also work with retired police officers who have the shittiest attitudes, man, and they still act like nothing has changed in my mind. They think they're on a power trip is what I'm trying to say. And I remember one specific officer saying, you know, during the Rodney King, yeah, I worked that during the riots and I made a lot of money. I worked a lot of OT that day. And I'm like, that's cool, I guess. But like, what do you think about what's happening, man? Isn't it wrong? Isn't it bad? I mean, shouldn't we try to put a change in that? And his whole demeanor to me is like this rotten, you know, his whole attitude is like always negative is what I'm trying to say.
But the thing is, sometimes
You might become that because you're around negativity.
Yeah, exactly. But not only that, I mean, ask anybody that today's Friday, right? Ask anybody that's getting off of work at 5 o'clock Friday. They've been putting up. It's everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's these people who are just miserable with their life. They probably hate their husband, or they're not getting their child support, or they're not getting their welfare on time, or who knows what it is, or somebody just died, or somebody got diagnosed with cancer. Who knows? A lot of people are miserable in their lives. They don't know how to turn that switch on and off at work. They bring it to the work area. That's just how it is. When you're getting paid by a company to play a role, You need to become a different person. It's a role. And I tell everybody in life, you're a character. When you're in school, you're a student. When you're at home, you're a son or a daughter. You know, you got to play the role that is given to you at that point in time. But that's just my point of view.
I agree. I agree with you completely. And you have to fulfill that role, whether it's, you know, for a year or 3 years, 5 years, or your whole lifetime. You know, you just have to fulfill that role, whether you have to go to work every day at a job you don't like, but that's what you have to do.
Everybody's doing it by choice. Last time I checked, we live in a country that's free and you're at will most of the time when you are employed. So if you don't like your job, go work somewhere else.
That's
Guess
what
what?
I say.
Right? That's what I say. The job market is slim, but hey, you know what? There's these immigrants who come over here and they're selling oranges and flowers off the freeway. So if you're bitching and complaining, I just can't feel sorry for you. I just can't.
But the people, you know, picking strawberries in the field, that's what they want to do.
Yeah,
If they don't want to do it anymore. You know, I had a friend. He was legal with papers, but he picked strawberries because that was something that he wanted and had to do to get by.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put these people down or anything. I mean, you do what you love. If you love being around people, interacting, that's cool. Do what you love, though, but don't bitch about it. Because everywhere I've worked, I've actually left places because I bump heads with people when they disrespect me and they're yelling at me in my face like I'm a dog. I'm just not taking that anywhere when you're giving me a 25-cent raise. I'm sorry. I'm just not. You know what I mean? Overworked, underpaid, understaffed.
Good for you. Yeah, just find something else.
I disagree
Exactly.
with all you guys.
Really?
Even though Dan hasn't even said anything, I disagree with him because, I mean, how difficult is it to find a job nowadays and where, you know, your union is suckered into a crappy contract? How do you make a difference, you know, when everything is rigged, it feels like to me. You know, I'm a good dude. I work. I go to work on time. And I get mistreated like a newbie because I'm not on a contract that says different. So I feel like there are different standards for different people, and times have changed and contracts have changed, and everyone is combining forces, like these corporations that are taking over and Walmarts that are taking over, and slave labor is making the goods, and these guys are making killer profits. You mean to tell me this is fair? You mean to tell me?
I never said it was fair.
I'm just asking a question. I'm not attacking.
I'm
not attacking you.
No, I agree with you. I mean, the thing is nowadays, I mean, who directs hirely or who hires directly anymore? Nobody does that. When I wanted a job at Target, I went and I applied at Target.
Temp agencies.
Or now it's all temp agencies. It's Apple
liability.
One. Exactly, because now they don't have to pay your benefits, 401k,
And they can let you
dental.
go if they don't like you.
Exactly. If they don't like you, they have like a 90-day period, and then it's just ridiculous nowadays. And I don't know. How is it with the police officers? I mean, are you hired directly through the agency, or how does that work?
Things are different now. I mean, a lot of the times, you know, you got hired by the city and you got paid while you're in the police academy, you know, and you got paid, you know, decently. It was hard work. You definitely earn your paycheck. I have a good friend. He's currently at the CHP Academy. He has a whole 3 weeks before he graduates here, and you know, they really make you earn your paycheck. You're out there hustling, you know, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, you know, training to get the skills you need to survive on the streets, you know. But oftentimes now, if you want to get in with a lot of police departments, you have to what's called self-sponsor yourself. That's where you foot the bill to put yourself through usually a local police academy, whether it be through a junior college or some other, you know, sheriff's department agency, where you actually pay for the bill for all the books, the learning domains. You have to pay for your weapons. You have to pay for your uniforms, your PT gear. Everything.
None of that is reimbursed? Tax
Typically,
write-off?
no. You can write it off on your taxes, yeah. But at the most, you're shelling out anywhere from, you know, $5,000 to $9,000 is the average, in my opinion.
So you really got to want it.
You
in
really
other
have
words.
to want it, and even then, there's no guarantee you're going to get hired afterwards. You
Harry
have
really
the
wanted
training
it.
and the skills afterwards, but you're not guaranteed you're going to get hired afterwards.
When I was younger, you know, I joined the Explorers, the Fire Explorer program. I think it's an excellent program. I think more cities really need to push it because I know there's an Explorer program for the police as well. And that was one thing I thought I wanted to be a firefighter. So I was like, all right, let me do this. And it was awesome. It was really cool. I kind of regret not going to the academy just to get the experience. But it was really awesome, and I saw what they did. But eventually I was like, you know what, this really isn't what I want. But it was a great experience. Do you think that these programs are you guys are aware with the Explorer program, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think that, you know, what do communities need to do? I think there needs to be more interaction with police, because I feel like I do see the cops, but there's not really like open forums. You know how the city council meets up and all that. What needs to be done to really have the community gain the trust back from the police department?
I think the community needs to trust each other. Oftentimes, you don't even know who your neighbor is.
Yes.
Correct.
What happened to what is it called? Watch something?
All the
Neighborhood
community
watch.
watch.
Yeah. What happened to that?
Exactly.
Still exists, but yeah, the thing is most police departments today do have some sort of community forum, but you don't hear about it.
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing is police officers do a million great things, before one bad thing happens.
Right. You make those little deposits. You know, you deposit like, this is a good thing you did. This is a good thing the department did. This is a good thing.
And nobody ever hears about it.
Right. Until something
Exactly.
bad goes down, then you take that big withdrawal.
And you know what?
Right.
While we're on the topic, I just want to touch on another article. This was another guy that he's actually a good officer. You know, some guy was at a shoplifting at a market. You know, they call in the police. The guy goes, this guy's trying to steal formula for his 6-month-old baby. The wife left him. He doesn't have any money. So the cop was like, well, if I give him a citation, he's pretty much going to go to court. He has no money to begin with. That's another $20 or whatever. He's like, time.
He's indigent.
So the cop ends up buying it for him, you know. And I mean, and this is coming out of his own pocket, you know. And these are stories that I think need to be in the media. Like, look, this guy has a heart. He's showing empathy. He's showing that, yeah, he's a human. And I mean, I know so many people are struggling right now. I know he can't help the world and we can't save the world. But I truly read this article and I was just like, wow, like I had to dig for this article. Like, that's really sad. It's not making front page. It's not on the top of Yahoo.
Well, it never
or
will
Google.
because it's not sexy. Okay, because I can tell you right now that I know lots of cops, including myself, that did stuff like that all
Yeah.
throughout our entire careers.
And I believe it.
You know, we'd go into a restaurant, we'd see a homeless guy on the corner, and we'd buy him a bag of food and give it to him.
Yeah.
You know, but we don't call the media and
Yeah.
say, okay, meet
Look what
me
I
at
Yeah.
meet me at the
Exactly.
McDonald's at Cross and Don't
PR
Cross.
campaign.
Yeah, and have your cameras ready because I'm
Yeah.
about ready to do something really good. You know, we don't do that. We
They only
just
do that when
it.
riots are going to go down. Just kidding.
And I think that's what the problem is
Yeah.
we do good things millions and millions
go
of times a
unnoticed.
day
Yeah.
that go unnoticed. And we're not looking for recognition. But what we are looking for is when something goes bad. And I'm not saying that we did something bad. I'm saying a situation goes bad. All we want from the community is just, you know, let's hear it out first. Let's,
Benefit of the doubt.
well,
I mean,
not
you
only
know?
that, but let's wait
Yeah.
and see what the facts say before we jump to conclusions. And that just doesn't happen because that's not sexy. It's sexy it's sexy to make something up or to take one witness who was 3.5 miles away at the time and take their
Drunk.
statement as opposed to waiting for the facts to come out, because waiting is not fun.
And you know what I really think effed up the community is drugs. I think drugs just tormented everything that Martin Luther King was trying to build, and all these good people out here who just want to make a better difference in their community, including police officers. Drugs, man. Who brings drugs into this country?
CIA.
That's your opinion. It might be a fact. You gotta look into that. I'm with you.
They
I
have
mean,
a proven track record. I
Well, it's
mean,
anything to alter you mentally, whether it be, you know, alcohol, drugs, or anything. You know, there was something recently, a couple months ago, down in Long Beach, where there was a roommate who lived in one house. He got really drunk or something like that, went to a neighbor's house, broke in, and the lady that lived there shot him and killed him. And all the neighbors are in an uproar, like, how would you kill the neighbor? Why would you do that? Well, he broke in my house. I didn't
Yeah,
know what he was up
yeah.
to. And the neighborhood was split. Like, she shouldn't have shot him, and yes, she should have shot him, and she was well in her right.
Hands
You know,
up.
When can you defend yourself? This guy was in her house, and yet she was in the wrong.
but
It's
everybody
like-
wants the right to bear arms.
right.
Yeah, so it's
So-
kind of like, yeah, I agree with that. Wasn't there another guy too, where it was a guy and a girl that was pregnant? He ended up shooting and killing them, and they actually aren't pressing charges. It was in Long Beach area too, as well.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
but
I'm gonna look
it's-
up the article, but yeah, something along the lines where they're not pressing charges. What about the? I want to bring this up just to get your opinions. The Trayvon Martin thing with the Florida Stand Your Ground. What do you guys feel on that? As well as the decision against Eric Gardner and the cops. What do you guys feel on those two?
I think Trayvon Martin was two separate cases in one, because he was doing a neighborhood watch, which is perfectly legal.
Yeah,
But approaching the guy and going to the physical altercation.
he wanted
was-
his Skittles, huh?
I don't know what he wanted, but I think those are two separate issues,
guys.
and that's why he was released, and now he's back in jail. But that's
For
besides the
domestic
point.
violence.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
guy's a nut.
The guy
but-
has anger issues.
Yeah.
But what do you guys feel on the decisions made?
For me, I don't know about you, Dan, but for me, all of it was just blown out of proportion, sensationalized by the media.
I can't
I
breathe.
just, I really am indifferent. It's too far away from me. I didn't know the facts. I didn't see what happened. To be honest, it's harsh, but I don't really care about it because it doesn't really affect me personally. And I didn't see what happened. I didn't see the facts. I didn't really feel the repercussions of the rioting and all the negative stuff that happened, you know. And
Do you think one thing that I question sometimes, like everybody's like, oh, the rioting was because of, Michael Brown and Eric Garner. I just feel like society's just fucking fed up sometimes.
People
like
need a release, just like when the Lakers win. If they go to a championship, people are going to riot because they need some sort of
They're stupid.
Release.
They're drunk and they're obnoxious, and they're that's why the sports are there for them. Like that book by George Orwell, 1984. You give the public the shit to watch and they're going to eat it up because, again, who controls the media? Who's in control? 6 corporations that run the show. It's 6 big, humongous
One thing I want to touch on that, because if it's Hollywood, false flags.
Yeah.
FBI, the FBI has pretty much since 9/11, we have not been attacked by any terrorists.
Yeah, question from Marcus Wrong Online. He says, do you guys, do you know what a false flag is? Ask them if they know law enforcement drills are used to cover up for false flags, and cops who participate could be used as a patsy or killed for witnessing it. What do you guys feel about false flags?
I'm not aware of that term.
False flags?
Yeah.
Where pretty much the FBI has been known to do this, where they go and they approach some individuals who might not all be there, and they're like, oh, you guys want guns? You guys want cash? And they pretty much fund these guys to do a crime, set them up, and then they bust them. And then they're like, yeah, see, we deterred this terrorist plot. These guys were going to do it in the name of Allah and stuff. They're Muslim. So they're pretty much setting it up and busting it so that they could look like they're actually doing something.
I was just a beat cop. I was just dealing with local stuff. You're dealing your drugs. You're running your stop signs. You're beating your girlfriend, kind of thing. I lost my dog. So you're just dealing with those day-and-day things. You're the mediator of keeping the peace, pretty much.
Okay.
I think overall let's see. Without saying it, I'll just keep it. I'm not a big fan of our current president, but I have to say that I think our government in general, the FBI, CIA, whoever's doing it, is keeping us fairly safe. Now, you mentioned that.
I'm just saying what I've read. I'm not saying I completely agree with it. These are just things that I've read. I've done a little bit of research, and it does seem like, they have been doing it. It's kind of like with the whole Boston Marathon thing. Like, I don't know. Like, was this kid set up? Like, one of the kids was actually killed by the FBI during interrogation. Like, who knows what happens there? I wasn't there, but they shot him in his head, and for that to happen, he's got to be charging them or already on the floor. These are just things that I've read. I don't know if it's true. This is the problem that I have with when I discuss things with like Lou or just anybody in general, is that I don't know. I'm going based off what I read. I have questions for them. I don't fully believe all this stuff. I'm just.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. First of all, you said there's been no terrorist attack since 9/11. Well, you just mentioned one, Boston Marathon.
That's a domestic terrorist.
That's domestic, though, right?
Terrorist is a terrorist. And I think that we use this domestic terrorist thing to justify terrorism, or to say, well, hey, it's not the Muslims doing it. Well, wait a minute. It was, whether it's domestic or not, it's stemmed from a religious belief, a radical religious belief.
Or money.
Does it matter? Does it really matter if it's homegrown? Just because they were born here makes it homegrown?
Well, that's just where they categorize it out. But
I think
but
it's
where
stupid.
are you going at with this? Are you saying that Muslim beliefs, the extreme Muslims, need to be stopped? What's your point to the end of this?
Well, I didn't mean to go that far into it because
that's what I read. That's my interpretation. But
of course, extremists need to be stopped. Of course they do.
Of course.
But you touched on an excellent. And I actually want to say that I do agree with you. It is terrorism. But that's why I disagree with this war on terrorism. Terrorism will never end. You cannot stop terrorism. This is bullshit. All this money funding. Homeland Security buying $1.9 billion worth of rounds. Holotip ammunition that is banned by the Geneva Convention on Warfare. They got these FEMA camps. They got NDAA. They got drones in our skies. They got the NSA. Everything I swipe, every email, every text. And like you said, I have nothing to hide. I don't either. But stay out of here. Like, I'm not. If I don't give you probable cause, leave me alone. Stay out of my phone. Stay out of my brain. Stay out of my day-to-day life.
Which they've been caught doing. The NSA has been caught. That's why Edward Snowden is no longer in this country.
Yeah, exactly.
It's deep. It's real deep. And I know this is beyond the rationale of a standard police officer who's just doing his job. But when you're just doing your job, does that mean... Of course, you guys are human beings. You want to help people that are homeless. You want to help a mother who can't pay her rent, so she's got to go steal. But isn't this an issue of public policy, like issues of the inner, what is it called, urban areas, like the people that are oppressed, the people that been living poor their whole lives, that can't, on welfare their whole lives.
But what sort of policy can we create to change that? I mean, there's always
Spanking
going to
kids.
be.
That's not already.
Yeah.
That's not already in place. I mean, we California is the most entitlement heavy state, I think, in the country.
Because everyone always wants more here. It's just like it's not good enough to be status quo. They want that better job. They want that better car. They want that better house.
Well, hold on, Harry, because rent's like $1,000 for a 1-bedroom studio, dude. I mean,
then maybe
move out.
You shouldn't live here. And I don't mean that. And I don't mean that as get out. What I'm saying is if
live within your means.
If that's your lifestyle, that you're homeless, that you don't want to work, let's say that's what you've chosen to do. Maybe, Los Angeles or San Francisco, California is not the place to be.
Right.
I mean, but the reason they stay here is because they are entitled to so much other stuff.
Like?
Well, if they get sick or something, they know that they can go into just about any hospital. And even now, under Obamacare, by law, they have to treat them, whether they can pay for it or not.
And even your local homeless person. I mean, if you're truly homeless, you don't want the help. You're not out there panhandling. That's different. Those are two different people there. The true homeless, they're just out there living life, and they get handed stuff all the time. If they seek it out, they'll get the leftovers in front of a restaurant.
If you ask them, they will tell you. A lot of them will tell you, it's my choice.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's their choice to be homeless, what does society have to do with that? What are we? I mean, if they don't want to be helped, then how do you help them?
Yeah, since we're on the topic of the homeless thing, I think we touched on it in the last podcast, but I just wanted Kelly Thomas, you guys are aware, Fullerton, California, the homeless man who was. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, it was on video. Was that excessive force?
Definitely.
I don't know. Fill me in because I don't.
Do you have the video? Can you pull in the video?
The internet's down.
Well, Kelly Thomas was pretty much a homeless man in Fullerton. I mean, the people knew him from around the block. They say that allegedly he was going to the cars and trying to open them up. I don't know. He was proven bipolar or what is it? No. It was a different schizophrenic. Schizophrenic. So he hadn't taken his meds, and pretty much they apprehend him, but they just keep clobbering this guy, like to pretty much that picture where he's puffed up.
Well, you're skipping some things. They told him to sit down, and he sat down, and they're like, cross your legs, and he crosses his legs, and then he uncrosses them, and they're like, keep crossing your legs, and then he goes, the guy kept uncrossing his legs while he's sitting down, which he didn't seem at any point was he a threat, but the officer goes up to him, he's like, you want me to fucking punch you in the face?
Was that Cincinnati or the other guy?
The big, heavy-set Mexican dude, Okay. And someone was filming it from their balcony or something, and then they, I think they start wailing on him for...
Yeah, dude, for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, and they start tasing him, and he's screaming for help, and
Dad.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't know anything about it, and I don't. It'd be unfair for me to judge it without knowing the facts. About it.
And of course, I don't know what happened prior. I don't know what I don't know, but based on what I'm seeing, I did think it was a little bit of excessive force.
It was way over excessive. They killed a guy.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's excessive force. I mean, personally, I have family that do live the choice of being homeless on the streets, and I thought automatically of my cousin, and I'm just like, dang, like if that would have happened to my cousin, wow, that it would have been a whole another ball game. And this is what some people might not know about me, and I get personal on the show all the time, but I have homeless family living on the streets, and it's tough. And when I do come across them, I try to hook them up. I'm like, give them some money, give them a ride. It's my family, it's my blood. But I have both ends. I have friends that are millionaires. I have family that's broke on the streets. So I've had a little bit of everything. I lived in different places, but the thing that really pissed me off that was crazy was that these guys, obviously they leave the force, and the Cincinnati, I think it was the white guy with like the lazy eye, they're coaches for little kids in little baseball leagues, and that's kind of scary to me because I don't know. It's like I don't know. I don't know these guys.
I think we all become extreme at some point, and it's unfortunate that they did it during their shift, But
yeah, it is because they're representing. The thing is, it's this: when they have that uniform, they're representing the community. They're representing Fullerton PD. Yeah. And the thing is, this was happening at a time when Anaheim was getting pretty crazy. When there's back-to-back shootings of Hispanic males. Again, there was like 7 within a 5-month period. There was riots, and it got pretty out of hand. And I'm in that area, and I'm going to tell you something: the cops out there aren't the nicest. One time I was pumping gas.
How many cops?
Well, let me finish my story real quick. One time I was pumping gas, and just right next to where I work at, and I was playing my radio. It wasn't really that loud, and the cop was like, "Hey, can you turn it down?" And I seriously did not hear him because he was apprehending 2 people, had them in cuffs, and he's like, "Turn that down." I was about to go
how did
reach.
You know he said, "Can you turn the music down?" First time?
Because I didn't hear him, so I asked him to repeat it. And he repeated it, and then I was gonna go to do it. He starts walking towards me. He's like, "Turn that nigger shit down," and I was like, "Damn." Why when he said that, I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, and then he's like, "Oh, you a smartass? Oh, you a tough guy? You a tough guy?" And he just gets my ID and he's like, just writing me up all this stuff, and I'm like, "Nah, man, it's cool, man. I'm sorry. I honestly did not hear you. I look at me. I don't have a record. I've never been arrested. I'm not on probation. Never been on parole." But he wasn't hearing it at that point. At that point, he just felt disrespected, and I honestly, it was a busy street. It is what it is. But again, I was like in my early 20s. That was something that I had. I've also had a negative experience where the cops actually, Anaheim PD again, pulls over my father on our own business. My father has a brother who has used his name as an alias prior. So right away, they're thinking that it's somebody else, mistaken identity. He's like, "Oh, where's all your tattoos?" My dad's like, "I don't have any tattoos." He's like, "You have the wrong person. You think about this." And this guy was being a control dick until my uncle got on the phone, with the watch commander from Anaheim. And he's like, and then the cop was still mocking my father at that point. And my dad's like, he's like, "I'm at my business. I have my license. I've never been arrested." And finally, he's like, "Oh, get off the phone." He's like, "I'm talking to your boss and he wants to talk to you." And when he passes it to the cops, whole demeanor changes and everything, But these are things that we're dealing with, and and that's what I try to argue with some people. I'm like, I have been discriminated against, and you guys ask, "Oh, where's the statistics? A lot of people don't talk about it because you know what? It's just indifferent to us. It's like, fuck it, that's how it is. Growing up in Santa Ana, we'd always get picked on by the cops.
They don't know how to report it. There's a lot of unreported statistics.
I know, but I'm just saying, I've never been in a gang. I've never been arrested. And I would still get discriminated against.
Well, they don't know that. That's the thing. But they might.
I know they
might
don't
be
know
on
that.
a power trip. They might be having a fucked up day. I know a cop who, he got divorced from his wife. She just split, man. She didn't even tell him why or nothing. And this guy's got to go to work on the beat. Come home with no support system.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pull in the heartstrings of fucking.
No, and I hear you.
But I'm trying to say that like these people have emotions too. These people go through some shit too, and then they got to deal with an inconvenience of people who have no respect, like you bumping your music, and it just sets them off. You know?
But I mean, it wasn't really that. I was just getting out of my car to pump gas. I wasn't trying to. It is what it is on that one.
And if I'm a cop and I'm hearing you bumping
side,
NWA, I'm like, F this guy. He likes Eazy-E. He's an idiot. That's how I would feel as a police officer. Because
but the thing is,
what are you representing?
On the flip side, I have had positive encounters with police too. I'm not saying it's everybody.
But Harry, let me ask you a question, man. How do you deal with crazy people? Like you pull over somebody. No, let me ask you about homeless people. I wanted to say this, but Mike was on a rant and shit. But I wanted to ask you about crazy people.
Just saying what I've experienced with police.
Exactly. And as a police officer, what have you experienced with psycho people that you go up to them and, "Hi, sir, how you doing today? We got a report of some sort of incident," and they say this.
Well, you're always in control of the situation. Exactly.
How do you stay in control of this?
As a police officer, you always have to be the command presence. That's what you're trained to do. You're always trained to win, to go home, a winner at the end of the day. You're going to survive. So you have to always come up ahead, whether it's always to yell louder, you got to live on the streets,
Yeah.
So this officer, for what you're telling me, he was trying to go on your level. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you think you're a punk, he's going to be a punk back a little bit. He's going to.
In all honesty, I really wasn't. That's the thing is, he was arresting 2 people, and I just happened to pull up. I didn't really see them actually until after I saw. Oh shoot, there's 2 cops right here.
Right.
And then it was too late by then. But I learned my lesson though.
But looking back now, you can kind of see his situation. Like, okay, I was bumping my music kind of loud. He couldn't hear. He told me one time.
And he was interrogating 2 individual suspects. And now it does make sense now. But at that point in time, I wasn't seeing it that way. You know what I mean?
But now looking back, you're like, okay, maybe I could have did things a little bit different.
And
maybe if I had my music.
And it's in
loud.
the area where they shot that dog Bruno. Right. I mean, it's within a couple blocks, so that area is a known gang area. So
right, and looking back, now that you're older and mature, you can be like, well, if I didn't have my music bumping, he probably wouldn't even bother me. I would pump my gas and be on my way.
But the point I'm trying to make is that area to me, it's normal to see all that, where to other people it might not be. So to me, it's normal. It's just it's normal to me to see all that.
Speaking of normal, you're gonna have people who are all up in your face. You're gonna be crazy with you. In the end. Right. You're there to take control of the situation and go home at the end of the day. Whether that you're always going to be in control. Whether it be that person gets in handcuffs and calms down, or in the back of your car, or even just yelling at him like, "Hey, dude, shut up!" All right. Sometimes it's something simple as that.
Yeah.
But people always push the limit these days,
and they don't understand. Like police have a mentality that has to be the correct way. And that's what James used to say: winners and losers.
Yeah.
And that's what people feel like losers when the police approach, because it's a police way or no way. and they can take your life if you disagree with them, which it could be an extreme, you know, like, hey, put your hands up. No, I don't want to put my hands up.
Yeah.
Do what we tell you to do. No. Well, we have a gun aimed at you now. I don't care. Okay. Well, we want you to keep your hands up. No, I'm reaching in my pocket. Boom.
Yeah,
Done.
It's our Y generation, isn't it?
It is.
It's our what generation?
A Y, yeah, our Y generation.
So let me ask you this, Harry. Would you rather deal with the guy that was just played there on that audio?
Okay.
Would you rather deal with? Would you rather deal with him, or would you rather deal with the guy? And you've probably, I don't know if you've had exactly the situation, but I did. The guy that stands there, extremely calmly, looks you in the face, and says, "If you try to arrest me, I'm going to kill you."
Wow.
Which one would you rather deal with?
Have you had that happen, Dan?
I'd rather deal with the
I'm
crazy
going
guy.
the crazy guy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because you know what? In the end, if he's not a harm to himself or anybody else, you walk away.
Good
Right.
to go.
You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, but if someone is that calm and calculated, I'd worry about them more than some ranting lunatic like that.
completely
That's
completely
kind
right.
of psychotic.
I totally
right
agree.
there.
It's a trip, though. I was at McDonald's, and I was ordering some little bagels, and I'm sitting there with my brother. And this woman, when we approached the bench, this woman's talking, and I'm like, some lady's having a conversation, you know, and we're eating our food, and I'm talking to my brother about PS3 or whatever, and I'm hearing her still talk, and I'm like, she's having a cool conversation. I seen a guy sitting right by her, and I'm like, cool. About 10 minutes later, I look over, and the guy's no longer sitting there. I'm like, what is going on over there? This woman's talking to herself out loud, and it seemed like she was having a conversation,
That's
but she was
funny.
just talking to herself.
Well, you know, Louis, there's a lot of, mental issues out there. My very first job that I worked in this little hole-in-the-wall music store. And, we had guitars and musical instruments for, like band kids and whatnot. But every once in a while, there'd be this lady. We call her the static lady. And she had on headphones, and they'd be completely wrapped in aluminum foil. And this lady had static on full blast to keep the voices out of her head, and we'd see her on a regular basis, and I'm sure she's completely deaf by now if she's still around, but
Wow.
the mental issues that our society has to deal with, I mean, really, we don't have to deal with them. It's just like, that's our mentality, like, hey, they're too far gone, let's not help them, and they're kind of outcasts. There's nothing we can do with them. There's nothing that'll help them or rehabilitate them. There's nothing to back in the day, they used to do shock therapy on these people and all sorts of weird experiments.
Lobotomy.
Well, they
Yeah,
used to
lobotomies and-
institutionalize them,
Right.
But that became illegal back in the 80s, I believe.
So they become homeless or hyped up on medication.
Yeah.
And sometimes they often deal with police, and it
Yeah.
goes down sometimes
And,
in a bad way.
Sometimes at my location where I'm at, we deal with sometimes the graffiti or mostly the homeless a lot of the times, and sometimes they camp out overnight. So, in the morning, they leave us nice little presents like feces or vomit and things
Right.
like that for us to clean up. But one of the things is, like, when we usually do call the police, like, they're like, was anybody injured or is anybody being threatened? And they do have to prioritize, what they're going to do. And I comprehend that. I understand that. But I hear other people complain about that, but a lot of the times it's like domestic issues, like you're saying, like it's issues where you need to be the mediator, and it's like, I can't solve all your problems. Stop clogging up the phone. We're dealing with rapists, with murders, with all these other
It's funny
things.
that you say that. So what was your question when they usually ask you?
Is anybody hurt or is anybody like in harm? Is there any?
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Right, they're trying to assign a level
Yeah.
to it, and Harry talked about small police departments. I worked in a fairly small police department, and there was sometimes only 4 or 5 of us working.
Yeah.
But we were a very busy city,
I could imagine.
and so we'd have 12 calls pending. Well, the poor dispatcher has to determine
Yeah.
which one is number 1 in importance and which one is number 12, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I can
mean, because when
imagine.
someone calls the police, whether it was, hey, my bike got stolen out of my garage, or somebody's firing rounds at me, everybody wants you there and now, right now, So
The entitlement.
This whole thing about we get involved, or we get into this response times and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We have to understand. Look, if something happened yesterday and you call the police, they're probably not going to arrive in 20 minutes.
Well, if you didn't call them within that same day, obviously it wasn't priority, right?
Well, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
even if
depends.
it's something that's not occurring right
Yeah.
now.
When a crime happened to you, obviously you want the help right then and there. You want them here. Like, someone stole my lawn ornament. I want the police here now.
Yeah.
And they don't care that somebody's getting shot at halfway across the town.
Right.
They want you there right now.
Yeah, no, and I've actually gone to a point where, like, we don't even call the police anymore. It's just like, I've had such negative experience where, like, okay, they come do a report. Unless they catch that person and prosecute them, you're going to get your what's restitution.
Exactly.
And it never happens,
And
at
to
least
be
where I've
honest,
been.
sometimes we don't even want to be there too, because the
Yeah.
way the system is, I mean, there's really not much we can do.
And I get that feeling. There was only one time where we really did because of insurance, because they actually broke in and stole 2 vehicles. So at that point, you know, it's just pretty bad.
And from a police officer
Yeah.
standpoint, sometimes we look at it as, because, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of people are liars. Like, is this insurance fraud? You know,
Yeah,
did
exactly.
Did you dump the car and you just want to get
all,
something
all the
new?
all the questions.
Damn, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, the question is, a lot of the times was like, well, who had access here? Do you have any friends or this? And they're investigating. But the good thing was we recovered both cars. One of them, the fuel pump actually went up, so they just dumped it. And another one, we had to go all the way to San Luis Obispo to re-get that car. But one time they went there, and there was actually in Fullerton, I think they slashed like over 200 cars. Well, they hit us too. They slashed 10 of our cars, just all the tires. And at that point, it was like, it's pointless. Let's just fix it and let's keep it going. It gets to that point, and it's sad that society, we have to deal with that.
Well,
you know?
in the end, who are we going to find? You know, are we really going to
Yeah,
find the
exactly.
person slashing tires? You know,
Exactly.
What good is it going to do? In the end, you file an insurance claim where you just fix it yourself, and that's it. I mean, there's not much
Pay
you
that
can do,
deductible.
unfortunately, because there's just a lot of bad people out there.
Yeah,
these
there
days.
is, and it's unfortunate because you know, where I'm at, we most of the time we don't talk to the loonies because you don't know, they have nothing to lose. One example I'll give is one time a homeless guy was asking my father for some water. You know, we were busy with a client, like, hey, just go away, go away. The next day, because we used to have a hose outside, he had the hose in there full blast, and the whole office was just flooded. You know, so that was kind of his retaliation. But from that day on, my dad just kind of learned, like, you know what, just don't even talk to these people, don't say anything, just let's move this. But you can't control other people,
Right.
you know?
And, you know, one of my friends was telling me recently, you know, he visits his in-laws who live in a not so great part of town, in I think El Monte, which is not too far from here.
Yeah.
I grew up around there.
Yeah.
I mean, real close. I know it. It's ugly.
Yeah, so you know, he went over to his in-laws, and he was going to have dinner. And normally he parks out in front of the house, but he decided to pull around to the back alley. And he parked his car and got out, and his father-in-law said, "Shh, get down." He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "There's a guy that speeds through here. He does like 45 miles an hour through the alley every night, and I'm going to do some street justice on him." And so, you know, he had some spark plugs he was going to throw out the window to bust out his windows.
Wow.
And so, sure enough, yeah, they're sitting there chatting, waiting for about 30 minutes, and lo and behold, up comes this guy doing like 45 miles an hour in his truck, blows past him, you know, and he throws the spark plug and shatters out his back window. The guy freaks out thinking he's getting shot at, and
Dang.
goes even faster. But lo and behold, he's like, the guy never sped through there again. He never went through that alley again, you know, and that was the street justice at the time. It solved the problem.
I like that story.
You know, but
I don't like that story.
but oftentimes, you know,
That's
what's he
funny.
going to do? Is he going to call the police and say this guy speeds through every day? Yeah, he can probably do that. And maybe if
There's a better way to resolve that, Harry.
patrol check.
Violence is not the way.
Violence is not the
I'm
way.
picturing this guy in the truck losing control
Yeah.
and crashing into a telephone pole
Yep.
and
And blowing up.
Yeah. But in the end, you know, that solved the problem. Could he call the police? Yeah. And could the police have done extra patrol checks to see if this guy was speeding through the neighborhood? Yeah.
Not,
but
not only that,
giving
get his
him a
license
ticket-
plate number.
Right.
Report his license plate number. This isn't that difficult, but people don't have that common sense to
Right.
say, to know what the police know and what we can do to resolve it peacefully.
Right.
Peacefully.
But in the end, would his reprimand of a couple $100 for a speeding ticket or reckless driving through a neighborhood and going to court, would that really solve the problem of slowing him down? You know, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think when you hit people in the pocket, it really, people have, God is the money, or money is the God, you know, for a lot of people. So when you do have to, you know, you pass that red light, boom, it flashes. Well, I got to pay $500 for this. This is ridiculous. Like, I think some people, it does kind of hit them. It's worked for me. I remember one time I was speeding. This was back in the day. I was going on I forget, it's a toll road between Rancho Santa Margarita to come towards Santa Ana area. And I was going literally 110, maybe 115. The cop was being very courteous with me. He was under a bridge. And when I was like, oh man, I was slowing down. Comes up to me, and I know he clocked me at like 110, 115, but he came up, he's like, hey, I got you going at 99. And I was like, damn. I was like, yeah. And I showed him all my paperwork. Everything was good. He checked me. He's like, dude, why are you going so fast? I was like, I'm trying to, you know, get home. I don't want to get in trouble. He's like, well, you want to get there alive or you want to get there dead? And I was like, dang, you know, you made a good point. But I
He
always
could
go
have towed your car if it was 100.
Oh, he could have done a lot of
He
things.
could have put you in,
He
right?
could have done a lot of things. So I ended up going to court, and the ticket I was looking at was like $1,300. I was like, how am I going to pay this? I was like 16, 17. I go in, the judge told me, he's like, and I was like, oh yeah, I was trying to request traffic school. He just laughs at me. He's like, how about you go visit a morgue instead? How about you go visit a morgue so you could see and maybe that will change you. You know, he's like, you know what? He's like, if it would have been 100 over, you get, you know, your license suspended. You could even look at, you know, community service and all sorts of things. But since it was 99, the cop was actually hooking me up because I was being respectful to him. I was being nice. He saw that I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't, you know, I was just trying to get home, and I was being an idiot. I was a brand new driver, but that really changed me because I was like, dang, who has to pay that? My parents helped me out. And then I didn't want my parents paying my bills. You know, it's like I was already 16,
Right.
wanted to be a man, but that really changed my life. It really
The
did.
so-called system worked
Yeah,
for you.
it
That's what it's
did.
supposed to do,
Yeah.
you know. But oftentimes, you know,
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, people speed through their parking lots at say 30 miles an hour, and you think that's speeding through a park. No, that's not speeding.
It
that
is.
can easily kill someone
Yeah,
too, and people just don't
exactly.
realize that
It
life
has.
is precious.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that judge, you know, my respects to him, and it really made me open my eyes. And I was there with my father, and my dad was just kind of reiterating what he said, and that really stuck with me, you know.
Yeah.
Did he make you go to a morgue?
No, but he said I should, and I've already seen dead people. I mean, I've seen plenty of dead people. I mean, it wasn't anything related to being a crash, but I have seen, you know, people. But yeah, I got what he was saying real quick, and I thanked him for it. And you know what? Till this day, I really try to watch my speed, and I hate when somebody's behind me and they're just tailgating me. I mean, and then all these people road rage. We live in, you know, California, where there's always constant traffic, and it's just like, dude, pass me up. It's
Right.
like, pass me up. And sometimes I'm feeling good, and I'll pull over so
Yeah.
they could go. But I'm even in the slow lane
Yeah.
or the second to slow lane, and it's crazy
That's a whole conversation in itself. How people drive here in California, but
when it's raining, especially, right?
especially when it rains. But yeah, people really have no concept of, you know, courtesy on the road. But you know, that's what it takes sometimes, is that
Yeah.
little wake up calls, because you have a lot of people that cruise in the slow lane, the first, you know, couple lanes there. And then of course you have your occasional douchebag who just
Yeah.
doesn't get it. And one day, hopefully, they'll get it as they, you know, fight through traffic. In the end, you're gonna be at the same red light, you know, 2 minutes later.
Can I ask you, not being a jerk and all, but have you ever felt like you were doing the same exact thing that they have at one point in your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely, I was. And
So
then
we're all
sometimes-
douchebags.
at some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
before you
at
wake
times
up,
we
you're like,
are.
I need to grow up.
Yeah. I want to go back to the conspiracy theory I brought up about Rodney King, how in 1992 the riots killed 43 people, 2,000 of them were hurt, and only ending because of the military. And a lot of people are upset. Military, man, they're militarization, they're taking over this country, and we're gonna lose all our rights, you know. I have a weird theory, like O.J. Simpson. You know, everybody that I know thinks the guy was guilty. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
The
I mean,
glove didn't fit.
OJ?
yeah.
Yeah. And if you look up the word guilty in the dictionary, there's pictures there.
Okay. And with that said, how did he get let off the hook? Well, in my weird conspiracy theory mind,
Money.
Good
Money.
lawyers.
I feel like
Exactly.
no, I feel like the police were not ready. This was only 2 years after what happened to Rodney King. The police are still not ready to deal with riots. Police were still not ready because of what happened. 53 people getting killed. They said, "Yo, you gotta let him off the hook because this guy is just gonna incite more riots. It's a black man and a white woman. Let's just squash it."
Well,
You know,
well, wait a minute. Let me ask you a question here. You want controversy on this show?
let's do it
I'll give you some. Why weren't there any riots when he was found not guilty?
because he's black.
Huh?
Because of the black population, they saw that he won.
Oh, so white people aren't able to riot?
They are, but I good question. I don't know.
Oh, thank you.
That's a really good point.
Why aren't there riots in Irvine?
Yeah. No, seriously.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, you're
I
right.
think because those people have money and they're pretty comfortable and they have a nice soft
Oh,
pillow.
so it's about money. So we
It's
riot
a-
for money?
It's about the have and the have-nots, Dan. People that have not are fed up with not having anything.
You know, we should get some stats on the Irvine Company apartments. Find out how many people are actually late on their rent because they
Yeah.
can't afford to pay it. There's actually a lot of people
Yeah,
that
there's a lot.
can't afford to live there.
Yeah, I actually was going on a post with
Section 8,
another
welfare.
friend, and we were going about it. And I think Lou actually chimed in on it too. But I went to high school in Irvine, and actually a lot of my friends were on housing and on welfare. Just because you live in the suburbs does not make you automatically rich. And I try
Bingo.
to argue with this so many people because I'm a product of the suburbs, but I was always in Santa Ana. You know, I grew up out in Santa Ana, Anaheim, and these people, I know more people. I still bring up this stat. I know more people with guns in Irvine than I do in Santa Ana, and that is, I don't know if it's because they're Middle Eastern. No, I'm just kidding.
For
but
those of you who don't know, there's a large population of
Relation.
Asian, white, and Middle Eastern in
in
Irvine.
Irvine, yeah, but not everybody's rich there. I'll tell you that. There was people from Compton in my school. There was people from East LA in my school, from South Central, from Santa Ana, San Diego, all the
but
way
that
from
doesn't mean
Tacoma.
they don't have grandparents that have money that allowed them to leave the ghetto to come to Irvine.
A lot of them didn't, though. They were on housing and welfare.
A lot of
Because
them-
Yeah,
the
well,
area
well-
I would go to was a specific area next to Irvine Valley College. It's all away from the city.
I live in Irvine, and I know what you
Okay,
mean.
you know what I'm talking about.
My theory is that people live in Irvine is They live in Irvine because they can't afford to live there. And what they do is they get roommates. They get like 4 to 6 people, and they share an apartment.
But that's how today.
And they can say they live in Irvine.
In the 90s, can we say that? In the 80s, can we say that? I mean, we got to look at statistics. I mean, I don't know them, by the way. But what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, I mean, Dan makes an excellent point. Why didn't white people riot when Nicole, whatever her name was, died? Simpson.
I think more of them believe in the justice system. Even if they didn't agree with it, they're like, hey, that's what they want to go with. That's what it's going to be. And I think that Hispanics and minorities or blacks, we have a difficult time with law enforcement and judges, especially if it's a white judge, an all-white jury. It's always this race card thing. And it's hard for me to talk to this with a lot of my family members because a lot of them, they've been in the system. They're like, Mike, you never been arrested. It's like, well, yeah, because I'm not acting like a fucking idiot. It's like I wasn't.
You got to look at what the weakest thing is. And that's why, let's go back to the media, is let's look for the weakest thing. Well, okay, it wasn't based on their behavior. No, it wasn't about what they did. Let's just say it was race because he was black or Mexican or Asian. That's got to be it. Let's make that assumption.
But this one wasn't really racism because he was married to Nicole Simpson. It's a black person and a white person coming together. So it was a jealousy.
And he killed his wife.
All right, let me give you another one. During all this Ferguson stuff that was going on, right after the grand jury came back with their verdict, in another, I think it was in Missouri, it was somewhere in the middle United States, where a black officer shot a white unarmed kid.
Yes. Yep, I read that.
Wait, about that?
You read it?
Why didn't I
hear
about it?
You mean it wasn't on the news?
It was on Facebook. I don't watch TV.
I know, but my point
I hear what you're saying.
Is why wasn't that on
Double
Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all those?
Because the media's intention is to divide and conquer. They do not want racists to combine forces to wake up and smell the coffee that we are being run by a very powerful corporation in our country. When they combine, you have a totalitarian. Exactly. And we're getting destroyed by the inside out, and the media controls. Where's that little thing that I have? The media controls the newspapers. They control the TV. They control the radio. They control a lot of things.
Of course they do.
They even control our internet now. You go on a YouTube video, and boom, there's a commercial that pops up about Verizon or something.
Yeah. Or go to Brandman College, or invest in your future.
Why are you just sitting on the couch, yo?
Exactly. Because that's what they say in America. You grow up, you graduate high school, if even that's in graduation terms these days, and then you go to college, and what does that do for you? You can get a good job to make $13 an hour at a medical office to file papers.
And they don't tell you about the debt, about how you declare bankruptcy, you're still stuck with that federal loan.
And you're sharing your apartment with 5 others in Irvine.
Can't even bring a girl home, man.
So let me remind you, there are 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, 1,500 TV stations, and 2,400 publishers, owned by 6 corporations.
Wow.
Hey, don't you think it's funny that when you file bankruptcy, the government allows for all your debts to be paid off except for, or to be, what's the word they use?
Forgiven,
I
guess, if you want to say.
Except for federal debts?
Yeah.
Right. I don't get this either, since you bring that up, because I have a couple cousins, and I don't want to
put them on blast.
Right, but we nicknamed them something kind of derogatory because they're a little large and they like to eat, but they like to live the lifestyle too. They live in a nice rented house with a nice yard. They have a couple cats. They have 2 kids that are out of control that don't know any type of behavior because they don't parent them. They let the kids run wild. And
that's
they
how
have
kids
their
are
own
these
mind.
days, didn't you know? iPads at age 2. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
They're all about the iPad, and they're going to scream. He was only 4 years old, and he's screaming for his iPad, but he still gets his way. So they've declared bankruptcy 4 times already.
Wow.
But yet they're still able to get
credit.
Nice cars and credit because they have jobs, but they just can't manage their money properly.
Yeah.
How is that right?
A lot of that's greed.
Yeah.
Greed from
completely
from when you file bankruptcy. I mean, there's companies out there that still want to loan you money at 40% interest or whatever,
and they'll pay it because they can live the lifestyle.
And I guess that's the only way to reestablish your credit or whatever.
Right, but that's why they have a new car every couple of years. Yeah, it's not really theirs and it's getting repoed all the time, but
it's too easy.
That seems like the new American way.
I think you should be able to file bankruptcy once in your life. Yeah. And that's it. That's your
get out of jail type thing.
After that, you can't file bankruptcy anymore.
Yeah, they make it too easy. I mean, look at these companies. It's crazy. I mean, the bankruptcy thing did affect a lot of people where they lost their houses. They shouldn't have been approved for those loans in the first place. I believe, you know, a
Those
lot
are
of these people.
foreclosures more than bankruptcies.
Yeah, well, the subprime mortgage crisis, you know, where they were just, you know, they're saying how much you make.
Well,
I make
greed.
$100,000. Yeah, greed.
No more stated income because of that
Yeah.
reason.
And I think it goes back to what we had stated earlier is what were we saying? Oh my gosh, I'm going blank here. You gotta live within your means, you know, and like a lot of people just don't want to do that. You know, they don't live within their means. It used to be that term paycheck to paycheck. I don't even use that because it's debt to debt.
Yeah.
It's loan to loan. It's not paycheck to paycheck. Your paycheck is gone as soon as you get it.
Let's go to a quick break. We'll be right back.
This morning is terrorism, obviously, homeland security, and immigration. Those are the two pretty big issues on our plate right now that our current president is just passing on, and or making things up illegally or whatever he's doing. I think we need somebody we need a strong leader. We need somebody that's going to stand up there and give America some confidence in what's being done in our government.
That's what each and every one of them do during a political debate. They're giving us confidence, but it's a false confidence because they're just saying whatever the hell they got to say to get the votes.
Exactly, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody that's going to say it and carry it out,
Like
and
Ron
have
Paul.
and have the fortitude, have the
track
ability
record.
to do it,
Yeah.
to convince Congress that this is the right way to go. Because right now, our government is so screwed up right now, it's sickening. And I don't just mean the president. I mean from him all the way down through all the senators, the Congress, everybody.
And that's coming from a police officer.
Well,
Well, I forgot to press record. So, Harry, really quick again, I'm sorry, this is stupid. But if you were Kim Jong-un's son, the dictatorship, what would you, I had to throw that joke back in there because it was funny. What would you would like to change in this country really fast? I'm sorry, I forgot to press record.
Well, like I was saying, you know, this is not a dictatorship, and well, I wouldn't say unfortunately,
Not yet.
but the president can't just go and say this is the way it is. There's so many special interest groups.
But he has.
and lobbyists to basically
sir.
say this is my puppet. I'm the president. Here's my puppet. You know, and just the way the system, so-called system, the government system, from our House of Representatives to the whole cabinet, it's designed just the way it is. I mean, there's all these checks and balances, and they can't really just say, I'm going to do it this way. This is the way I'm going to carry it out. You know, for us to go back to any sort of, you know, standardized morals and say conservative beliefs or anything like that, like it used to be in the 50s and 60s, you know, it's never going to be that way ever again.
Damn, that's so negative, bro.
Well,
I
that's-
think it's just
But
it's
like
a
Dan
reality.
was saying, we need someone to speak it the way it
you,
is.
You know, the thing is you want the truth, you can't handle the truth.
Well, when it comes down to it, it's really about
That's what
respect
it
for the individual. And if
Yeah.
parents aren't going to teach the children respect for the individual, you know, the government is going to, schools aren't going to. So who is going to?
They're gonna end up in the prison.
This is
system,
why
or in the
I say
system.
it starts at teaching, man. You got to bring the paddle back, dude. You
That-
have to.
That or everyone just goes to the military again, because that's where you gain your respect for people.
But there's no draft anymore, so you're having
There isn't.
people that want to go instead of people that have to go, and
We
then
have
families.
mercenaries now.
So that small percentage, like we were talking about, that's where you have the people that are respectful, that follow the law. For the most part, you know, there's gonna be, you know, you're kind of crazy former military people too. But you know, in the military, you learn organization and respect, and you know, you're doing 50 push-ups because someone told you to do it, and you have to do it. You know, that's just the way it is.
Builds character and discipline.
I agree.
Mike, any closing words?
You know, I think we just need to go back to the firing squads and beheadings like Saudi Arabia.
Come on, man.
I'm just kidding, man. No, but it's just crazy, you know, because we're out here debating things, but yet there's certain parts of the world that aren't even up to where we're at
Well,
on our westernization, you know, where you have President Obama shaking hands with the new king or whatever,
let's
and
go
they just
back up.
beheaded like all these people.
Let's back up for that. Yeah, I mean, you say, yeah, what about corporal punishment and things like that? You know, what are people afraid of these days? That's you know, they're not really afraid of anything, of any consequences for their actions or what they have to do.
They're always delayed by lethal injection another 6 months. It's always these delays with the lethal injection. It's always these delays with capital punishment. And I mean, look, I know this sounds harsh, but if you have proof for sure, you know this person did it. Like what? You know, killing all these ladies or serial rapists or murderers. Like, why are they alive? Why is my money paying for that? I don't know. It's just I don't know about
It's
that.
expensive to kill someone, though. That's what I've heard. That's
But it's
the argument.
$48,000 per year per inmate.
It's like
I
$1
believe,
million
the
bucks to
last
kill
time.
some dude. That's what I heard.
Yeah, but I mean, my thoughts
Close
on
it.
it though
Close
is
it.
just pretty much this. You know, I mean, be the change you want to see because that's all you can really do. Every day I wake up, I used to get really angry about picking up other people's trash, this and that. Now I just look at it, that's my cross to bear. I just try to look for good health. I try to treat others the way I would like to be treated. Sometimes I lose my cool. I'm human. But be the change that you really want to do and see in the world. Do something different every day to help somebody. Just smile at somebody every day, and that will change your life. It will honestly change another person's life. Today, I talked to maybe 5 different people that were just walking by, and everybody just had great stories. Everybody was cool. It ranged from homeless people to people who work for the city to people who were just passing by going to work. So, we need to communicate more as a community. I think community, if you break it down, it's communication, and it needs to be effective communicating without losing it and getting upset about another person's opinion. You got to just be able to talk about it and make the best solution for the overall general population.
Yeah, so I just want to close it by saying that the law enforcement applying to be an officer to me was kind of a joke, because you have to lie to the department to get in.
Have you smoked weed?
Exactly. They don't want liabilities. They don't want you to take a stand in front of the court and admit what happened and cost the department $1 million. They don't want none of that. They want someone who will cover up. And that sounds crazy, but it's true. And I understand where they're coming from. No one wants to pay a bunch of money, a taxpayer dollar, but I applied to be a police officer. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of discipline. I learned what the police know. Know your rights. You have a First Amendment. You can always say what you want to say. Don't ever lose that right. You have the right to bear arms. It's the Second Amendment. Don't ever forget that. You have the right to say absolutely nothing. I believe that's the Fifth Amendment. We have amendments. Use them. Don't be afraid to speak your mind. Don't be afraid to know the truth. And that's what we're here doing, Open Your Mind podcast, and we're going to leave you like that. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, sure.
Thank you guys for coming.
Without a rebuttal.
I had to throw that in there. Quick punch.
I'm like chomping at the bit to say, wait a minute, I was never ordered to cover me.
This is mine. Thank you guys for coming in. Until next time.
That's a difficult thing. I mean, it's so many case by case.